I now call the Planning Commission meeting of January 26, 2022 to order. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I think, Elizabeth, you'll put the flag up for us. I'll wait for that.
Looks like it'll be just a minute.
All right. There we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could remain standing for the statement of values, Secretary Commissioner Harrow.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We can all be seated. And Elizabeth, if you would call the roll. Give her a minute.
Chair Biagini.
Here.
Commissioner Chair Kuru.
Here.
Commissioner Harrow.
Here.
Commissioner Wang.
Here.
Commissioner Akazi. Commissioner Saleem.
Here.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, Secretary Harrow, if you could read the Declaration of Commission Procedures.
Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. Number one, the chair of the commission directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the commission. Number two, any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent hearing. Number three, applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals. Following staff presentation of the item, other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of comments. Number four, no additional comments will be accepted upon the close of public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Number five, special procedures, time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. Number six, appeal of commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days.
Thank you. Now, copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on Friday afternoon preceding the meeting, and they are also available online. Continuances and exceptions. This is the part of the meeting that allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. Now, are there any requests, applicants, the public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any of the items on tonight's agenda? Elizabeth, do we have any?
We have not received any requests.
Okay, thank you. Now, I do want to explain this part. The Planning Commission does have 7 members. Whenever the full commission is not present, applicants do have the option to continue their item to another meeting, although I am of the understanding that Commissioner Akazi will be joining us a little bit later. So consent calendar. We're going to go ahead and move to the consent calendar. Secretary Harrow.
The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted, approved, or adopted by one motion, unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. If any member of the Planning Commission, the staff, the applicant, or a member of the public wishes to comment on a consent calendar item or would like the item to be heard on the regular agenda, make this request now. Items listed on the consent calendar with associated file numbers constitute public hearing items. Any requests? Hearing none.
Through
We'll
the
move-
chair, my hand's up.
Oh,
Ah,
sorry.
yes, I'm sorry. I missed that too, Commissioner Chirakuru.
I have a comment, and if necessary, Xander can advise if we need to pull it out to discuss. But I continue to see that the minutes have been completely whittled down. And I'm trying to confirm if that should be raised as a question out of consent calendar or can be addressed before we make the motion.
Staff?
Why don't you pull it so you can discuss it?
Thanks, Xander. So I'd like to pull the item.
Okay, we will pull that and we will hear it, I think, after we talk about under public presentations. So that takes us right down then to public presentations. Let's see, I'm a little lost. Are there any members of the public that would like to briefly, I think I'm on the wrong spot. Well, yeah. Commission on any item that's not on the agenda?
No,
Elizabeth,
no
is it-
requests. No requests.
Okay. So I think then we move to, help me out if I'm wrong, staff, we go to public hearing and the first item would be what we pulled. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's go to public hearing items and the first one will be about the minutes. Commissioner Chirakuru.
Thank you, Chair. And the question for staff. So I know I'd given this feedback, and even a year ago when Council Member Suds was then a commissioner, we had requested that there be additional notes that City Council can actually read, because the action minutes seem very much just that, the actual motion without any context or description before. I know Elizabeth clarified in my previous request for minutes. Thank you, Elizabeth. Good adds in clarifying some of the concerns. We had extensive discussion on the item that is on the billboards because it more prominently tied to the city charter and its guidance on reducing. So I'm trying to understand what changed. Why are we at so bare minimum skeleton minutes?
So Commissioner Chirakuru, this is Rena Brio. So the feedback and the direction we've gotten from the city clerk, who really makes sure that we have consistent approach to minutes, as well as like the administration of our various different commissions, was and is about action minutes. I do recall that the Planning Commission wanted some more nuanced information, and what could be helpful is if we could go back and look at that specific action if the commission took that action. I don't know if there's a meeting that you could help us maybe understand like when that was, or if other people on the commission have a general timeline of when you think that discussion may have been, because that's what we would utilize as any sort of guidance if the commission went through the extra step as an entire body to say, we want, you know, our minutes to be done in this particular way, which is a deviation from, you know, obviously the direction we have gotten. So I don't know if, I feel like there was a discussion. I don't know if there was a consensus and an action. We're happy to try and find that record, but quite frankly, I actually have no memory of the period of time in which that could have occurred.
It was, I think, sometime in June when Commissioner Jane then was still, and I think it was 2020. But again, Rena, yes. Now, know the role of Planning Commission is a recommending body. It's very different from a city, which is action. You know, the next ability for anybody is going to be just a civil and an appeal. It doesn't exist anymore. But a Planning Commission action is an appealable action to the City Council, in which case the actual nuances of the minutes are the ones that are going to help City Council as a recommending body. What was the recommendation based on is going to be really critical. So understanding the nuances of what Planning Commission or other recommending bodies' role is in context with the minutes. Otherwise, the City Council does not have, well, Silicon Valley Voice always publishes a very comprehensive minute. So yes, there's always an an understanding if they go there. But as an administrative record, it's not captured that this is Planning Commission's deliberation and recommendation. The deliberation part. So
Sure.
a pure action
So what
makes
we
sense
what
if it's
we're
a city
looking
council
for is
action.
specific guidance so that we can create the minutes in the way that the commission as a whole would like them created. As someone who's kind of overseeing the staff and our staffing, I will tell you that it does take a lot of time. There are other resources. People can watch the video. There's a way to actually get the transcript of the entire meeting. And those are things we can talk about, but I just want to actually go back and research the direction that the commission previously gave us so that we can at least say, hey,
Look to the meeting that Suds
yeah.
chaired. So that would be where we actually made the motion to incorporate
And
you're thinking
that's in
minutes
the
with
June 2020 timeframe.
Sometime around that.
Okay.
Commissioner Chair Crew, I do recall when at that time, Commissioner Jane asked for conditions of approval. When those were changed, that be specified in the minutes. So I don't know if that might be what you are referencing, but I know we have, as Rena has said, we have clerk's office does give the direction, just as with council minutes and commission minutes.
And we'll go back, Commissioner
Yeah.
Chirikuru, so that we look at what action was taken. And if other people have a recollection of, the time frame for this, we're happy to go back and research it. And then we'll bring that back to the commission so that we have an understanding of what happened. And then we can, at our next meeting, discuss with that information available, how would the commission proceed? And I'll of course also share just some other, points of consideration for you.
Yeah, no, good point, Rena. And again, I've been on both sides, so I completely know the time, that it consumes in writing some of these minutes, especially. And we've gone back and forth in reckoning with city's request for action minutes to be, but I want to make sure that we understand our role is in a recommending state. And if there's no understanding of what the recommendation was based on, it falls slightly flat. I mean, we can always attach Silicon Valley Voice, I guess, but I think they do a fabulous job of capturing the notes or minutes of the meeting. But I just want to make sure that I voiced my opinion. It's an opinion at this time, but yeah.
Point well taken, Priya, and Rena as well. We have two other hands up. Commissioner Salim, followed by nobody. I thought you had your hand up, Commissioner Harrow. Followed by Commissioner Bhatnagar. So let's start with Commissioner Salim.
Okay, so I do agree. Our minutes have gotten very anorexic lately. I think what we could do to help council and each other is a small incremental improvement of maybe time stamping the video in the minutes to describe when a particular topic starts and finishes. Because I think I spend the majority of my time on YouTube scrubbing back and forth, trying to find particular spaces that we are parts of a meeting that we've discussed specific issues. That would probably give a huge boost to the ability to focus in on a particular topic. The other thing we can do as commissioners is help staff by saying, could we please note this conversation? And I mean, literally put a highlight in and say, please note this conversation. Because a great deal of our conversations, and including my rambling right now, are really not helpful to commission, to the council. So I don't want to belabor their time and waste even the public's time. But yes, small incremental improvements could make it much more helpful for people. Thank you. Great
points, well taken as well. Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Thank you, Chair. And I second Commissioner Chirikuru's request and point noted. I think she does make a very good point in terms of getting a little bit more nuance and color in the minutes. So here's just a quick suggestion. Staff are certainly tied up and resources are always short. Here's my question to the commission, actually, to ourselves. Is there any help we can provide by taking notes, maybe the part of the secretary's duties, or any one of us may be assigned a scribe for a particular meeting, and we just take, so for example, let's say a member of the public makes a 2-minute presentation. In the minutes, it would come up as so-and-so presented, right? Member of the public presented. But that's the anorexic part, right? What did they say? right? Were they supportive based on this reason? They were against for that reason. It's still a line or two lines, but somebody needs to digest that and say this was what was said, and that would add the color and the reasoning behind and the nuance I think Commissioner Cherukuru is talking about. So my statement here is, are we able to help ourselves and the staff maybe to, as also Commissioner Salem was pointing out, I'll get there, and maybe do a little bit to help all of us in that manner. So that was my comment, and thank you for hearing me out.
Another point well taken, Commissioner Bhatnagar. And if it's helpful, Rena, I do recall the conversation when Suds was on the Planning Commission, specifically towards the minutes. And my best guess is it was probably around the June timeframe. So I do recall that conversation. So if that's helpful, and I think Commissioner Bhatnagar, what you said, all these are great points, and maybe part of it, at least until some of that research is done, if we have something specific that we mention, I would like to have the following inserted into the minutes, and it doesn't have to be a paragraph, right? Just that I'm speaking in favor of it because ABC. That would then help staff, because I know staff has a lot to do. So we want to make it easier for everybody, but also shore up our ability to provide the rationale behind our recommendations to the council. So I don't see any other hands up right now. So we do have the minutes from January 10th.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I just want to make a comment. Maybe all commissioners are aware of this. Your comments, I'm sure, will be evaluated, so I'm not doing that. I just want to make sure all commissioners are aware there's a closed captioning that has verbatim everything that is said in this meeting available to the public on our website.
That would be
and it's
great.
Available. It is available now, closed captioning.
But having the time frames, like Commissioner Salim said, might be helpful, so someone
Sure,
doesn't.
but I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that.
Okay.
It is a verbatim.
Thank you,
of the
Elizabeth.
minutes.
And Commissioner Salim and then Commissioner Bhatnagar have further comments?
Yeah, I really don't want to drag this out. I want to help Rena and Elizabeth and all of the staff keep this to a manageable level of detail. Just if we as commissioners could say, I would like it noted that. That's really a trigger that says, why don't we make sure that this particular point in the timeline is tagged? And that's nothing more than putting that spot on the minutes in relationship to the video. It's a little tricky. I don't know if maybe the IT can help that process along by putting a little mark in the video itself. We have that capability on YouTube to mark spots where we say things are important and may need to be noted. Perhaps they could help us so that it's just an easier communication.
Sure.
That's
so
it. I just want
we'll do the research on what was previous.
Please.
We also have to do our own internal research on city council guidance because they do give guidance to the clerk on all of that. So I just need to we need to do our research and then we'll come back and present that to all of you.
Actually, in support of your efforts, I've tried to get through a council meeting on video, 9+ hour council meeting. Without the 2x speed on YouTube, it would be impossible. They may benefit from this kind of idea too. I'm hoping that the idea of marking spots will save everybody some time, them as well as us and as the public as well. Mostly the public, because others are going to want to maybe scan through this and find interesting spots. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Salim, are you aware that you don't have to watch it on YouTube, that on our website, if you go to our website and click on our agenda and it takes you to that item on the agenda in the video? Okay. Because when it's uploaded to our website, it's much more intuitive than on YouTube.
I do like the 2x speed though on YouTube. That's a very helpful feature.
Thank you, Commissioner Salim. Did you have more? Okay, Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And to staff's point, there's no question that there's a record of the proceedings, and to Commissioner Salim's point that we could tag things, I think Commissioner Cherukuru is saying, what are we putting in the minutes? Ultimately, that's what's read and is available for the council to read before they go to the meetings and all that. So I still think her point is very valid, and anything we can do to enable that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. And I think what we're all saying is we're not looking to overly burden staff. We're looking more at a better ability for people to wrap their heads around different aspects of a meeting that they may seem as important. And that oftentimes, especially with electronics being the way they are, it's a little easier to pull up maybe an 8-page minutes than it would be to mine your way through a video. So hopefully this will work out for everyone, not unduly burdening anyone. So we still do have, and pardon my dogs
Move.
for talking.
So sorry. I move that we adopt the minutes, knowing that we will have to look at how minutes are written in the future meetings, if that's okay.
Okay, I can second.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Cherukuru, seconded by Commissioner Salame. If you'd like to take the vote, Elizabeth, the roll.
Chair Biagini,
Yes.
Commissioner Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Hero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Salame,
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, that said, we'll move on to the item that we have on public hearing. There's only one, and it is noted as item 2, action on, take a deep breath, the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan, creation of a new general plan designations and general plan amendments to change the general plan land use diagram from light industrial to various residential designations in order to implement the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan, creation of new Patrick Henry Drive zoning districts and rezoning of the Patrick Henry Drive area using those zoning districts, an environmental impact report and statement of overriding considerations, and a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Staff, if you would proceed, I see we're ready with the PowerPoint.
Excuse me just for a second,
Yeah.
Chair. Do we
Yes.
have to do anything special for Commissioner Ikezi at this point? Because
I asked that in the beginning. I understand, and Xander, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm understanding that since we do expect her to join us in maybe about 20 minutes or so, that we did not have to. But since we're moving into public hearing, do you have a different idea, Xander?
No, you're correct. No action is necessary at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, staff, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Biagini, members of the Planning Commission. This is the adoption or the recommendation hearing for the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan. And just as sort of a refresher, Patrick Henry Drive, the plan area is located in North Santa Clara, just north of 101, surrounded by Calabasas Creek to the west, the Kylie site to the north, Great America Parkway to the east, and Mission College itself to the south. Approximately 72 acres, of which 62 is developable, over 17 industrial properties. There are only 3 public streets in the plan area, and that's one of the big challenges that we had in getting the specific plan together and some of the design decisions that were made. The specific plan is to allow conversion of the industrial area to a residential neighborhood with up to 12,000 housing units, which was studied in the EIR that you're going to be making a recommendation on tonight. Again, paraphrasing what Chair Biagini just said, the recommendation actions to consider are certification of the Patrick Henry Drive final EIR, adoption of the specific plan, adoption of the general plan land use designations that implement that specific plan, and adoption of zoning districts that also do that. And as a refresher, there are two scenarios within the specific plan, one for up to 12,000 units and one for a lesser number of units, but office on the 4 parcels fronting onto Great America Parkway instead. The 310,000 square feet of other non-residential includes up to 200,000 square feet for retail and public facilities such as a library, and 110,000 square feet for a potential school. The land use plan, which you saw at the study session, includes designations varying from 60 to 250 dwelling units the acre, with generally the denser land use designations towards the center of the project. Most of the expected density range is likely to be over approximately 120 dwelling units the acre. And just as far as height limits go, given the general plan designations, they range mostly in the 5 to 12 story range. So zoning districts that are being proposed generally mirror the general plan designations as is required by state law. Required parking, just to hit the high points of the zoning designations or the zoning, the zoning code designations. Required parking is reduced from what's typical in the city of Santa Clara, 1 space per unit generally, and half a space per unit if it's an efficiency unit less than 550 square feet in floor area. Street setbacks are interesting because they're based on building type. So 10-foot setbacks for residential buildings with 0 setback to allow for better connection to the street for mixed use buildings with things like retail or flex space, meaning office or retail on the ground floor. And as with previous specific plans, including Lawrence Station and Tasman East, the zoning code amendment includes expanded legal non-conforming protections for existing uses. So existing industrial uses can continue on, and there's not a chance for amortization unless they choose to change the use themselves. As far as the urban design framework, I think the main thing to point out is that, again, this is an area that only has 3 public streets. A lot of the design was around how to break up the main super block. And so there's a network of private streets that are slower in character and meant to be shared by both cars and bikes and pedestrians. And then also a network of greenways that supplements those slow streets, and 1 east-west roadway that's proposed that goes through the 5+ acre park. Also shown on the urban design framework is a potential location for a library, which we'll talk about in a bit. The circulation and mobility diagram, again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, where there was a potential roadway connection to the Mission College driveway that surrounds Mission College. Mission College voted against that proposal, and so staff has changed their recommendation to include the Paseo connection as the preferred option. And as one of the 2 letters that you got from the public on the Patrick Henry Drive plan, one of the letters is from O2 Micro's attorney asking that all of the references to the proposed roadway be removed because it can't be approved without the approval of Mission College. So the main point here is that staff is of the opinion that it remains useful to keep the proposed roadway connection in the plan in case circumstances ever change, and it's available to the Mission College Board to revisit their thinking. So as far as parks and open space, there's a total of over 10 acres of parkland that are proposed in the land use plan. So this tracks well with the city's or city council's direction to provide 22% of the land area in parks and other forms of open space. So that's 16% already. The balance can be provided in terms of private recreational amenities, publicly or privately owned but publicly accessible open spaces, and the like. So with this land use plan and parks and open space plan, the city would be well on its way towards achieving the 22% requirement that it set out for itself. So just highlighting a couple more of the park amenities. It includes a potential trail alignment to connect with the the proposed Hetch Hetchy Trail that runs just to the north of the plan area, and also the potential community room that Summerhill is going to dedicate as part of their project, which is a 5,000 square foot arts room. Just talking quickly about the potential for a library or community center. This is something that was conceived as a potential community benefit. And by community benefit, what we mean is there was an idea to allow increased density on the ZNL site in exchange for additional amenities that the property owner or the developer would provide. And in this case, it was a library that would have been worked into their original proposal, which was for a 20-story building with a ground floor library. But at this point, ZNL is no longer pursuing that high density type 1 alternative, and they're looking at lower or sort of medium density options in the 100 to 150 dwelling unit to the acre range, well within the standard land use designations that are in the plan. So that said, staff has done preliminary planning over the course of the creation of the Patrick Henry Drive plan, and is indicating that an appropriate location for such a site of 40,000 or more square feet would be in the southern portion of the park where the Cirrus Regis and ZNL sites are. So we're including that information in our transmittal to the council. So I do want to return to the streetscapes and to just talk through especially treatment of the PG&E easement that's a part of the streetscapes. This was one of the real challenges of creation of the plan. And it was one, how to allow for the continuation of the easement, or how to respect the easement and still have a lively streetscape. So we've reviewed the language for the private easement that's related to the 25-foot wide easement area, and it requires property owners to keep the easement area free of structures and to allow to have the area available for maintenance or maintenance of the pipeline. So staff have also reviewed the community pipeline safety initiative. That's PG&E's guide to how to treat how to treat pipelines and what sorts of buildings and surfaces can be above the pipeline. And what staff are proposing is a streetscape that's consistent with that direction by allowing compatible uses, meaning sidewalks and low-lying landscaping within the easement area, and occasional tree plantings at the edge of the easement area. As development proposals are submitted, when we actually get individual development proposals, we'll be working and coordinating with PG&E to work out the details of how the streetscape should look to best allow for access to the pipeline, access and inspection of the pipeline. The landscaping could change slightly or could increase, sidewalks could decrease, so that there would be adequate space for inspection and maintenance of of the existing pipeline. So as part of all of the construction that's going to have to happen to create the plan area, there's a number of shared obligations that need to be spread around between all of the developers. So city staff, especially the Department of Public Works, has been creating an infrastructure fee that creates a fee that establishes a pro rata share for the cost of infrastructure improvements, including sewer improvements, the new private roadways that fall on some individual properties, but benefit all of the plan area, water lines, recycled water, and other transportation improvements that would support new residential development. So that's moving in tandem with the specific plan, and will be heard by the council at the same time. But this is a way for all of the developers to share in an equitable way for all of these improvements that improve the entire neighborhood. Regarding affordable housing, the specific plan includes language to require affordability levels that are above and beyond the city's ordinance requirements. And our typical requirement is 15% affordable housing at 100% of the area median income. So 15% of the units have to be deed restricted under the current ordinance to be affordable to people who earn the median. Patrick Henry Drive, we've gotten consistent direction from the council to have deeper levels of affordability, and what's in the plan and in the ordinance are to have a saying 15% affordability level, or 15% of the units being affordable, but at an 80% of AMI affordability level, so lower than what's required under the city's ordinance. And at a recent council meeting, there was an idea that was floated to have a 15% affordability requirement, but have that split between 3 affordability levels, equally split between 50, 80, and 120% AMI. So that's an additional option. What we've included in the plan is the first option, and it's also in the ordinance that we're asking you to recommend on. And if you have other thoughts, that's open for discussion. I did want to just quickly talk about the impact of our specific plan areas in the balance, or the relative balance, of the city of Santa Clara in terms of jobs and housing. Santa Clara historically is a very jobs-rich city. And as you can see on the left-hand side, typically the way that planners look at whether a city is balanced between jobs and housing is if it has as many jobs, or if it has as many jobs as employed residents. So a jobs to employed residence ratio of 1 is a good sort of shorthand for is the city balanced in terms of jobs and housing. As late as 2000, we had a jobs to employed residence ratio of over 2. And the orange line, which was what the general plan predicted for the life of the general plan, was through all of the focus areas in the general plan and the development that was originally conceived in the 2010 general plan, that we would get, the city would get to a jobs to employed residence ratio of something like 1.77 in 2035. The very good news about the specific plans that have been adopted, and also just changes in demographics over time, is that Santa Clara is becoming a balanced community much more quickly than we had anticipated. In 2020, looking at the American Community Survey, the jobs to employed residence ratio is down to about 1.5. And with the 7,000 units that are being proposed nearish term in the Patrick Henry Drive area, by assuming those are all built by 2035, that would reduce the jobs to employed residence ratio to something like 1.3. So the bottom line is the strategy for concentrated growth in specific plan areas has been a big success, or is likely to be a big success, and likely to lead to additional housing opportunities that improve the jobs to employed residence ratio. So just moving on away from land use to transportation. The plan does also include a transportation demand management program. And the goal for the transportation demand management program is the same as it is for the climate action plan, or it's from the climate action plan, reducing vehicle miles traveled by 20% overall, with 10% of that, half of that coming from active measures. So, and as part of that, to best create active measures that the entire area can benefit from, the TDM program will include the formation of a Transportation Management Association, a TMA, that'll help to organize and operate a shuttle. And that the point of that is to get people who live in the Patrick Henry Drive area to other regional transportation so they don't have to drive to their jobs. And we've been working to develop triggers to figure out when this is going to be in force. And the current proposal is to have a trigger of the TMA needing to be in place when after 3,300 units have been built and ready to occupy, have had certificates of occupancy issued, or an alternative trigger of 1,500 units with certificates of occupancy if there are other units in North Santa Clara that also have been issued certificates of occupancy. And that might be a more likely near-term trigger, especially with the 4,000 plus units that are being going through the development permitting process in Tasman East. Just to sort of relay information about review by the San Jose Airport Land Use Commission. The Airport Land Use Commission found the plan consistent with their comprehensive land use plan, their CLUP, that's related to the airport, provided that as development proposals come in, that they go through what are called no hazard determinations if they have to, if the buildings are tall enough that they impinge on FAA airspace. and to provide navigation easements that allow for planes to fly overhead if they're in the airport influence area, which is the area that's most impacted by the airport flight patterns. Regarding environmental review, the EIR that was circulated found significant and unavoidable impacts in 3 areas. Air quality, and which it's toxic air contaminant emissions, but what that really means is diesel particulate matter emissions from construction equipment. And that's a long-term impact and significant and unavoidable. The potential—
John, I just,
Yep.
that's a short-term impact. You just said long-term.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Potential destruction or degradation of historic resources, which is, even though there are no historic resources in the Patrick Henry Drive area at this current moment, the EIR was very conservative in the way that it looked at historic resources and determined that if any of the existing buildings do in the future become historic resources, there's no guarantee that they could be, there's no guarantee that they will be protected. So that conclusion was made in the most conservative of ways to really, just call out that there might be historic resources in the future and they might be lost. And then also noise, which means increases from traffic noise levels because of the development of the specific plan. And the cumulative impact is air quality or emissions related to criteria pollutants. And so we circulated the EIR in August and September, and we received a total of 5 comment letters, but none of the comment letters identified new significant impacts or provided other evidence that the CEQA analysis was not adequate and that recirculation was necessary. So we're not needing to recirculate, and the EIR can be acted upon, in our opinion. So these are the recommendation slides. I'm gonna just stop here and I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you, John. I have a question right out of the gate and followed by Commissioner Salame. If you could go back for a moment to slide number 9.
And you'll have to point it out because I don't, okay, see it.
Back up. Oh, right there, I think. No, move forward. Oh, I got to look at my own pages. Let's see, I think it's page 9, but it's after the red circle. Next one. Okay. I want to bring your, right there. Don't move.
Okay.
Okay. I want to bring your attention to this purple asterisk that the bottom arrow is almost on top of, and it's pointing to some, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say green space. Now I want you to go 2 pages more to page 11. And there you go. And here's what I'm very bothered by. And maybe I'm missing something, but let me tell you why I'm bothered by it. I see what was green space now has been removed with the proposed roadway indicator, that purple dotted arrow.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what O2 Microsystems was talking about, but what I do know is that's the road cut through to Mission College Boulevard that the Mission College trustee said no go. Here's my concern. Unless you can explain it in a way that I can understand it, I'm disappointed that which is now not it's a no-go now because of Mission College Board of Trustees. Why we would keep that there, replacing some green space when it's obviously a no-go. And I say that because should a situation change in the future, we can always revisit it and put it back in. But right now, it's clearly a no-go. So I'm disappointed that that's shows up on slide 11 when it was green space up until then, and I'm guessing that's why the little purple asterisk. So maybe I'm missing something.
No, I think that's a very good observation, and that was simply an oversight and reusing old slides.
Okay, so that really should be green space, and that should not show a proposed roadway that is no longer at
Right,
play.
not at all. Right.
Okay, I definitely appreciate that. I wondered why it still remains. So you'll have that corrected then, right?
Yes.
Thank you, John. We have Commissioner Salame and then Commissioner Huang.
Okay,
Well-
well, you covered one topic I had, so I'm only having one question. Could you at this point be able to produce a 3D view of the proposed buildings and see how the masses relate to each other and how they're in relationship to the roadways? Anything simple, is that even possible at this point, or are there not enough confirmed developments for the area?
No, our consultant has done preliminary massing diagrams, and we were trying to figure out the best camera angle to try to help describe what's going on in Patrick Henry Drive. So we have started working through that stuff.
Yeah, there's some free tools like Sketch 3D and things that you can lay out blocks and masses. And the thing I'm really interested in seeing at this point is, given relative heights, are any of those green spaces going to be consumed by shadow? Are the roadways going to create invisibility for some of the pedestrians as they move around? Just little things like that could help me understand better what the overall look of the whole project will be once a number of the buildings are put in place. But that really all depends upon how many of the developers have confirmed at least proposed plans of heights and masses. And if you could fill in anything on that, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and part of the, well, so Patrick Henry Drive is a bit of a different animal than Tasman East, for instance, where we have very involved stakeholders, and we do have at least 2 development groups that are moving forward. We do not have any development proposals at the current time, where for Tasman East, for instance, we allowed developers to submit development applications after the draft EIR had gone out. We made the same offer this time, and we do not at this moment in time have any development applications. So to your point, we don't really have a great idea of what individual development applications are going to look like.
And I have to give compliments to Chair Biagini. She caught that visual difference, and I was skipping over it with my glances through the screen. So yeah, it might be worth simply removing or graying it rather than making it look like it's something really possibly permanent. Yeah, thanks.
John, can I just say one thing? Sorry, because we do have a public comment letter, and I think this particular slide, I actually just don't want us to show it now because it's incorrect. Maybe we can move on to another slide. Thank you. In the plan, though, what we had been moving forward with previously did show the preferred main alternative, or the preferred option, to be the connection to Mission College. As John mentioned at our study session, as well as tonight, Mission College made a very clear decision that they did not want a connector road. What the difference of, I think, what the attorney for O2 Micro is raising, and I think they're in the audience, they'll probably raise it at the meeting, at today's meeting too, is that still in the plan, there is an alternative that shows a connection that is a possibility, should Mission College decide that they want to approve that alternative somewhere down the road. That road could never happen without Mission College's approval. So it's really there for a backup in the case that Mission College in the future, because actually environmental analysis was done for it. Other considerations were done. So it's really to commemorate the work that was done around this if Mission College ever changes their mind. And really that door could be open until that particular property develops. Once that property develops, no one's gonna make a roadway of it if, you know, at that time Mission College says, we're not interested in it. So I do want to be clear that in the plan right now, the main proposal is the green space that you're seeing in front of you. There is another alternative that shows in the future, if Mission College changes their mind, wants to pursue something, that all this work and analysis could be retained, and then a roadway could be built. So I just wanted to be clear that there's still something in the plan that references a roadway, just leaving that door open for Mission College in the future.
Okay. I think we have hands up by Commissioner Huang, followed by Commissioner Harrell.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually on page 3 or page 4, it's the land use proposed. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, this one, yes. So you have a scenario A and scenario B. I mean, have you decided which way to go, and how to compare these two scenarios?
So these two scenarios were driven by one property owner, the property owner who owns the 4 parcels that front onto Great America Parkway. And so the environmental impact report analyzed both proposals in terms of their impacts on the environment, especially related to transportation and other land use issues. So it's really at the request of the developer which way we move forward with those particular land uses. The 785,000 square feet of office is exclusively on those 4 parcels.
Okay. I mean, as a city planner, do you have preference? Since to me, it looks like if you combine the office and residential, it may be benefit to reduce some traffic, right? Car uses, since the residents may just go to the office directly instead of driving cars. I mean, just my feeling. I mean, does that make sense? Oh,
I think that's an argument for mixed use developments generally, that mixed use developments can help reduce trip lengths and help make it easier for people for housing to be closer to jobs. So yeah, that's very much in line with sort of current thinking on why mixed use is useful. But on the other hand, the fact that 12,000 residential units or 10,300 are going in a very jobs-rich area is in itself something that a mix of uses that will help reduce trip lengths.
okay. Yeah. Another question is you mentioned the school. It's in the 310,000 square non-residential
Right.
area. But I don't see that school on the plan. Is the location of the school, I mean, some recommendation for the location of the school? Or, yeah, how about the school? Yeah.
No recommendation on the location of the school. The location of the school would be determined by the school district and their ability to purchase land. At this, we analyzed the possibility of a school, knowing that a school might be necessary, especially given the size of the neighborhood. But it's really up to the school district to get the money together and to find a parcel that works for them.
John?
Okay.
can I just add one thing, actually more actually to the other point about these scenarios. I just want the commission to realize that you don't have to choose a scenario, that both of these scenarios were analyzed to provide flexibility of that one particular development per opportunity, which is 4 parcels along Mission College Boulevard. So that's really just how this particular specific plan was laid out, as well as the EIR was analyzed. But this isn't, 2 options where one option needs to get picked. They're both included as opportunities for growth, depending on how scenarios kind of unfold in the future.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's for me. Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Commissioner Huang. Commissioner Harrow?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, John. It seems like somewhat of a review for us after all we've been through. However, my question is on the library. Is the developer in on the library? Are they out on the library? Is it part of the plan? I'm a little confused on whether or not we're including a library in the plan.
The location for a library is included on the plan. There's language about a potential library in the future. There was this idea early on in the plan that ZNL was interested in density ranges above and beyond what was anticipated for the plan area. And that to allow that, the idea was that they would provide community benefits, a library, as basically justification for the additional density that they'd be receiving. So they've abandoned the idea of needing the additional density, so are not going to be providing that community benefit. But even though they're not going to be providing it, there's still interest in a library in the area, and we're still designating at least a potential location on the land use diagram, and including that information about the work that went in to the proposed or to the possible library, the study that went on over the past 3 years, and forwarding that on to the council.
And John, if I can just add to provide even more kind of, I guess, understanding of what the proposal really is we have a land use plan here that will accommodate a library and environmental analysis that would support a library use. And we've worked really closely with the Director of Parks and Recreation, as well as the Director of Library Services. We've done a test fit to look at a 47,000 square foot joint facility of a library and a community center. That could be a senior center as well. So it would be all in one building, and it would be actually on the dedicated parkland that's in the central spine of the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan. Because of really the exchange of, the change, I should say, in density, we don't have a funding plan for the library, but what this plan is bringing forward is the potential programmatic environmental clearance, as well as a good location that the city could actually develop a library if that funding kind of moves forward. There are bond measures that could move forward. There's a whole other path that the library could try and pursue to get funding for it. But here what we're saying is there's a good location, and we've created clearance for it from a programmatic standpoint.
So in other words, it's not part of the conditions of approval.
Correct. It's not a condition of approval. It's something that can be facilitated if the city takes the other steps that it would need to in order to design a library, to fund a library. If those steps came into play, this is a good location for it, where there is programmatic environmental clearance.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrow. Commissioner Huang, your hand is still up. You have another question?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, just one more question.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, actually, it's related to the school. Yeah, I think my question is, since I just mentioned the library, maybe they have some funding. So for school, does this project, does the developer need to provide the funding, or all the funding come from the school district? Thank you.
Individual developers would have to pay school fees for every unit that they create, but the school district would have to choose to use some of those school fees if they wanted to build, or they'd have to have a source of funding for buying the land and building the school. So that could, some of that could come from the school fees that they're required by state law to pay.
Okay, so, but the city has no influence where the school is, right? Just the school district, they make the decision.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Huang. I have a few more questions, but before I go there, Commissioner Cherakuru, I think we're still on kind of round one of questions and you haven't spoken yet, so go for it.
Thank you, Chair. Just confirming two questions. One, the CEQA identified the impacts of construction, but if we are adopting a specific plan, you know, it's over periods of time, right?
Correct.
It's not like it's one burst of air impact for construction of this entire zone. This is going to be an extended, so it's a catch-all to say that the air impacts of construction is going to be there whenever there's construction activity. But
Correct.
It's not like there is a whole block that's being built, something like other projects like related. This is a specific plan that allows growth of certain programs within this, and the construction impacts will be there, correct?
Correct.
For the second impact on the historic resources, and I'm assuming that, yes, we know the superstructures are not there, I'm assuming it also captures archaeological resources?
Yeah, archaeological resources, that is a different impact, and I'd have to take a quick look, but I think that we have program or conditions that relate to treatment of archaeological resources that make the impact less than significant with mitigation incorporated.
So there's known potential for archaeological resources?
No.
Okay.
Or no known, archaeological resources, but a process to treat them if they're found.
And the last was again related to the PASEO. I know we went on the potential CEQA approvals and adopted program, but when we say PASEO, what are we really envisioning? Would it have just pedestrian traffic? Would it be vehicular? What are we envisioning as a PASEO traffic?
So you're talking about the PASEO, or what we're calling the PASEO that's replacing the connection to Mission College. It would be a pedestrian and possibly a pedestrian and bike connection. So
pedestrian and bike, like
right,
two-wheelers.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that the PASEO is not really like traffic, and so hopefully the Board of Trustees have a different view, one from an emergency exiting requirement, but also that it allows for just ease of people to walk. So I'm hoping that there's a reconciliation on that. From a programmatic aspect, I think we should continue to understand that that's an option to keep until Board of Trustees makes that decision. So those were my three comments.
Commissioner Shirakura, I just wanted to add as well, what we're calling the PASEO is actually more than that. It's a park that could have I don't know, John, if you can go to that. That's dedicated parkland. I know it's kind of smallish, but it actually involves two properties that are dedicating land that would, O2 Micro and Summerhill, that would come together to create a contiguous kind of parkland space. Is going to be dedicated parkland. So because it's going to be dedicated city parkland, it allows for us to put kind of a nice, attractive, hopefully that's our park director of parks' vision, pedestrian connection, and then also a pathway for bicyclists as well. So it would be kind of in the context of more of a park-like setting. I know it's not super wide, but I did wanted to point out that that's dedicated parkland, and it'll be sort of programmed more in the lines of that entire space as a park. And even on the bicycle connection or pedestrian connection, we're going to want to coordinate with Mission College, because we're obviously connecting to their property, and we want to make sure that that transition is smooth. So there's more work to be done on that, but we think there's still an opportunity that Mission College would want to have some access to their site that maybe isn't vehicular.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rena, for additionally providing context that this is more like a parkland dedication and that the patio is one way into the parkland. So that's helpful. Last but not least, and I'm going to go there for Xander, how does SB 9 and objective design standards play into this plan?
Well, working backwards, objective design standards are required for, excuse me, the city can only impose objective design standards on most residential developments now. All of the residential projects in this would likely be subject to the Housing Accountability Act, and the city could only impose objective standards. But the specific plan is full of them. So we will certainly impose the standards that are in the plan. SB 9 applies to single family lots. There are none in this.
Okay. Okay.
So SB
just wanted to table. So most of this is because it's duplex / multi residential.
You're not going to be able to put a duplex in. The minimum density starts at, John can correct me, 60 or something?
60.
Yeah.
So they are like high rises, I mean, or mid rises.
Yeah, starting at 4 or 5 stories, yes.
Okay, okay, all right. I yield chair, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Just wanted to make an announcement that Commissioner Casey has joined the meeting.
Oh, good. Okay. And thank you, Commissioner Cherakuru. You got some of my questions answered. I have some clarifications I need. First off, if you can go back to page 14, which is the issue about affordable housing, John. So I'm not sure I caught this right, but if there was a preference for, under the 2 possible affordability scenarios, for the second one with 3 affordability levels, does that require some action on our part tonight?
I think you would give, in your recommendation about adoption of the ordinance, you would give direction to us to update the ordinance to include that affordability requirement instead of the 15% at 80%.
All right, so this would be under the adoption of the ordinance. And I do want to thank staff. This is a huge project, and notwithstanding the overlay potentials for SB 9 questions, thank you, Priya. The fact that you were able to reduce this to a PowerPoint to give us a better picture is hugely appreciated. Now to go on to my next question. Go to page 19. And there's also a large package under the EIR, but I think 19 will give me a better starting point for the conversation. Potential destruction or degradation of historic resources. I mean, I'm kind of familiar with the area and I don't think there's any buildings that would qualify, but yes, we are talking about, should there be a building that turns out to be significant 20 years down the road because of, for example, what happened there, and that the conservative approach was taken. I'm a little more concerned as well about archaeological findings. And the question comes down to enforcement. When I look at the EIR findings of fact regarding the environmental impact report, there is a piece out there that talks about, for example, if a historic resource needed to be moved, that's how you bring it down to a less than historic level. There's also discussion about documenting the historic resource before any changes would cause a loss of integrity or a loss of continued eligibility. In other words, there's a few points in there, mitigation circumstances, that would deal with construction in the area that might uncover. I think the best example would be archaeological. My question is, what's the enforcement point on that? How do we know if somebody is out there for new construction and they come across something? I mean, what's the enforcement to either, maybe enforcement's not a good word, to either A, know they came across it, or B, that they did come across it and something was done about it? Because I know I've said it in previous meetings, but there's kind of no do-overs when you talk about historic resources. Once they're gone, that's it. So that's my question. It comes down to information, knowledge of an event, and the enforcement should there be a discovery. What is that mechanism?
So in this case, you're talking about archaeological finds.
Yeah, because
Where
I
you-
think the probability is more, I mean, just my general knowledge of the area, I can't off the top of my head necessarily think of something that would be an existing building that, you know, somebody started Apple computers in or something of that nature, which would make it historically significant, as opposed to age. But I am thinking that the odds of archaeological findings might be greater. So how do we ensure that they're not messed with?
Yeah, so as part of the EIR, did a literature survey with Sonoma State to figure out whether there were any known archaeological site. But there were none identified. But the EIR does have mitigation measures for surveys and protection of archaeological resources, which would be a part of any development permit. So your question about how is enforcement handled, it's handled through the development permit and the conditions of approval. So developers are on record if they find an archaeological resource as part of their construction work that they're supposed to stop and, you know, record and find and talk to experts about what to do next as far as an archaeological survey or further preservation work of an archaeological resource.
Yeah, I'm a little, well, maybe not a little. I am concerned about that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then a developer is on the hook, so to speak, that if they find it, they see something, say something, they're on the hook for that.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And
I mean,
there,
I don't know if Xander, I don't know if in your history, you know, if people get prosecuted for, oops, didn't see that. I mean, I don't know if do you have any experiences about, I mean, your personal, we actually have a good track record in our city where we do get notified and we have on-site monitoring that occurs. And, but I'm just curious, like, you know, if we know of just circumstances and how they're handled.
Yes, we do know of one.
No, I'm not talking about like our own city, but just intentionally, if people intentionally skirt them, do you know if there's like criminal implications for people who do that?
Not criminal. No.
I am aware of it happening once in the history of Santa Clara, probably because I'm old and I've been around a long time. And it deals with the McCormick house, that it was caught by somebody as it was being raised, that it was not to be raised, but damage done. So but that was a long time ago. So, but that's still in the back of my head. So go ahead, Xander.
Well, yeah. I mean, Chair Biagini is absolutely right. Once the damage is done, there's no do-over. I've never heard of a criminal enforcement on a action in that context. But I would add to what John said, there is a procedure that all the developers will have to go through. One is they have to, I think it's mitigation measure 7.2, they have to first see if their property is listed on the CRIS database. And if it is, they have to hire a qualified archaeologist to do a preliminary field inspection and determine whether or not there needs to be additional subsurface testing. So there's some initial analysis, at least, that has to be done. It's not just go build, and if you find anything, let us know. It's first assess what the likelihood is of finding anything. So it's not as, you know, open doors as perhaps you were suggesting earlier. but I don't.
Bad memories. That's all. Bad memories. That's why I asked. So.
Yeah, I mean, I admired the city of Los Angeles because they had that scorched earth ordinance where if you destroyed a historic resource, you couldn't use the property for a number of years. You'd have to let the property sit vacant. We've never adopted that here, but you know, I wish there was stronger enforcement in intentional cases like that.
All right, thank you. And then the last comment goes back to the original question I had, and so thank you, Rena. And I understand that the plan now still shows the possibility of a cut through on the green space, but I also understand from Commissioner Chair Cruz the thought that this paseo could allow for bicycle and walking. I guess my question says, if it's off the table, why is it even, this might be a little picky here, but why is it still in the plan? I mean, there's also a possibility there should be a that's a little bit crystal ball for me, that let the issue come up at the appropriate time, as opposed to keeping something in the plan that's off the table.
So I can only speak to why staff, you know, obviously people have different opinions. You're going to hear different opinions tonight. Staff's opinion is there's been analysis on this. If actually the Mission College changes its mind, they're the ones who control the destiny here. They have to approve of anything. So it's not to bypass their interest in it, it's to allow them to retain their option or choice in the future. So the analysis has been done. There is environmental analysis that was provided. If that went away today and we took that off the plan and we took, then when you say to open that opportunity in the future, that means a general plan amendment.
Okay.
That means a lot of time that we would be asking, the Mission College would be saying, hey, developer, hold on. We actually want that road connection. Let's go through this year-long process to do a general plan amendment so that the city, and who's paying for that then? So we're just trying to preserve that option for the college if they change their mind. But we understand they're not interested in it. We're not trying to be pushy about it. We just want them to have that option, you know, 10, 15, 20 years from now, where circumstances may change. And we've done the work to provide them that option. So
by
that's
keeping it
just
in
our,
there, the
and
work
it's
is
not
preserved.
the main option. That's not the main. So, but you are going to hear different opinions of it, but that's why staff has proceeded the way we have.
Okay, I understand the time element should it change, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. Okay, that concludes my questions. I'm waiting to see if any other commissioner has questions before we go to the public. Do we have any other commissioners? Give it a second. So I realize there's a lot to kind of think through here. Not seeing hands. Elizabeth, do we have somebody who would want to comment from the public?
We do. We have quite a few speakers.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm looking as they're raising their hands. Everyone's raising their hand at the same time. We will start with Jonathan E. So give us just a moment. And public speakers do have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay.
I'm now unmuting Jonathan E.
Hello, is my audio working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. My name is Jonathan Evans, and I'm a member of the Santa Clara Board of Library Trustees, though I am words tonight are of my own. I want to say that I support the plan keeping a library within its confines. It's good that we're keeping that around. It's hard to identify these type of places and resources, such as a place for a library after the fact. I did have a couple of questions though about the EIR. I noticed that impact 15-5 discuss impacts on other public facilities. And as one of the impacts is that the increase in people in the area would put additional demands on library services. And it mentions in there that approximately 45,000 square feet of additional city library facilities have been put in the plan and required in the plan to accommodate, anticipate incremental library service demand. And whereas the specific plan has identified areas where the community facilities would be located, it does not have development plans that are subject to discussion as the details of the library. It also talks about funding in there around specific plan chapter 7 and implementation, which talks about how to fund the library, which is as potentially being done through community benefits or as part of other development impact fees, such as a specific area plan impact fee for that construction. And then it goes on to conclude that there's a less than significant impact because a library is included as part of the sequel. That's a little surprising if we decide that there wouldn't be a library, because it's not clear that the EIR would then be consistent with a less than significant impact. And kind of related to that, there's also number 4 section under that is cumulative impacts, and it discusses that because of in lieu fees paid by projects or park services, that there is no impact to schools and park facilities because of the in lieu fees, but also then mentions that there's no impacts to fire, police, or library services, which is surprising given that 15-5 mentions that there's an impact and that the library itself is a mitigating factor for that. So, thank you.
Okay, so who else do we have, Elizabeth?
Our next public speaker is Alicia Guerra. Alicia, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. I'm Alicia Guerra with Buckhalter. I'm a land use attorney for O2 Micro. Can you hear me at this point?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I submitted a comment letter on January 24th regarding our comments concerning the specific plan in EIR. And the reason we did that is, as Chair Biagini noted, the plan was a bit confusing because there are inconsistencies in the diagrams continuing to still show the road connector option when it was meant to be eliminated because the Mission College Board of Trustees has rejected that as an option. So contrary to what Ms. Rio has indicated, the city cannot go forward with a plan that does both, that tries to have it both ways, because there are now internal inconsistencies in the specific plan and the inconsistencies with the EIR. And we noted those inconsistencies in our comments related to O2 Micro's opposition to the road connector option, even if it is an option, because now you have diagrams in the specific plan as well as in the EIR that show the road connector option as a preferred plan and then also as an alternative. And the reason I'm saying that this, even as an alternative, cannot proceed contrary to what Ms. Brio indicated is the city cannot concurrently today approve a general plan amendment and specific plan contemplating a future road connection that someday the trustees may approve or may request because the trustees have already taken an action saying they reject it. And so if you were to carry forward a specific plan showing an alternative with this road connector option, that's going to be problematic because it creates an internal general plan inconsistency, which the city wouldn't want to have. So in going forward, O2 Micro supports the Paseo option, the no road connector option as to its property based on Mission College Boulevard trustees' action, and requests that it be consistent with the open space shown on the Summerhill property. And in that way, that's consistent with what is reflected in the plan and the policies. And that would be able to go forward without some future hypothetical option that someone may or may not ever approve in the end. So we appreciate your consideration of our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker we have is with the name SV at Home. You have been unmuted.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Kenneth Rosales, and I'm the Planning Senior Associate with SV at Home, representing our member organization as a voice for affordable housing in the Silicon Valley. I'd like to commend the staff's effort on the Patrick Henry specific plan. We're pleased that some of the housing affordability issues have been resolved. We appreciate this flexibility in making the inclusionary program more both robust and responsive to developers' needs within the specific plan. San Jose has typically been the leader in integrating high density and affordable housing. We're glad Santa Clara is following suit. Taking housing affordability a step further, we recommend adding language of a 20% affordable housing goal within the plan area. Combined with the modified inclusionary housing policy, this can be achieved with a standalone 100% affordable deed restricted housing project. Please note that we added this language in the El Camino Real specific plan as a reference. Lastly, we'd like to support and reinforce the plan's intentions to have a wealth of parks, improving quick trail connections, public amenities, multimodal streets, ground floor activation, and implementation of TDM policies to become a reality. If possible, we'd like to see more robust language so that the future 10,000 to 12,000 residents can meet their demands within their neighborhood, whether it's grocery shopping, walking to school, visiting the library, or accessing sport field or community center gyms. And with all this, it's important to keep car traffic levels low by incentivizing multimodal amenities, such as increasing the amount of bike parking facilities required per unit or employee, or incentivizing property owners and businesses to provide transit passes. Thank you for your time, and we'd like to thank the staff again for all their hard work on this excellent plan.
Thank you. The next public speaker we have is Jan Intermeister. Jan, you have been unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jan Intermeister. I'm also on the Board of Library Trustees. It's really exciting to contemplate about this site being a home for a new city library branch. But I'd like to get some clarification. In the EIR, in several locations, it says there will be a 45,000 square foot library in the specific plan. However, the specific plan never mentions a 45,000 square foot library. It mentions 70,000 feet of library and community space. So I'm a little bit confused about the specific plan not being that specific in this area, and seemingly a little bit inconsistent with the EIR. And then the staff report also talks about a 47,000 square foot public facility containing space for library, gymnasium, community, and other services. So, why 47,000 instead of the 70,000 that's in the specific plan? So I'd just like to make sure I understand what's going on with respect to those numbers. The second question I had to do with parking that's described in the specific plan. Basically, for community and library services, it says no parking is required, and I'm confused as to why it says no parking is required. It may be that that's not discussed because there's no funding for that right now, and we'll look at parking later. But I just wanted to make sure I understood what the situation was with respect to parking for this plan library/community facility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next public speaker we have is with first name John. John, you have been unmuted.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is John Dalrymple. I'm speaking for Silicon Valley MIPS. That's the electricians, plumbers, sprinkler fitters, and sheet metal workers. I'm representing about 17,000 of them, several hundreds of them who live in the city of Santa Clara. We submitted a letter to you and encouraging you to add some language increasing the community benefits from the specific plan to include construction workforce related community benefits. Other cities like Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Newark, well over about 15 jurisdictions in the last couple of years have included similar language to this. And this is not a mandate, but it's doing is encouraging the development community to seek to build on a development model that's sort of more high road versus a low road development model, and to employ the local construction workforce, to use apprentices so that we can have our youth at-risk workers, veterans have more opportunity to a career pathway in the construction trades, and to pay family supporting wages. As our letter indicated, there's a lot of benefits why this makes good sense, good public policy sense. When there's going to be thousands of construction workers needed to build out this project. There is a real fear in the industry and that there's not going to be the construction workforce available to do that. We have to be intentional and encouraging the use of apprentices so that we do have that future construction workforce to help build out this project. And obviously, if we have local workers helping build the project, that means they spend those millions of construction wages in the community, generating sales tax revenue for the city. So for all these reasons and more, we've talked to the staff in planning. Our suggestion of placing a new goal and 13.22, it seems to be the best place to insert this language. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next public speaker is Corey. Corey, you have been unmuted.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Corey Covedo, and I'm a member of Plumbers Local 393. I'm also a resident of Santa Clara, and appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan. During my career in the building trades, it made a difference if I was able to work on a project closer to home. It meant not being forced to drive 2 or 3 hours a day to get to the job site. I know the city needs more housing, and this plan will add as many as 12,000 new units, including much needed affordable housing. Let's ensure local construction workers build these homes and office buildings that you envision. I want to make sure that developers who come to our town add value to our community through the quality of projects and the benefits the projects bring to city residents. On behalf of the other journeymen and apprentices who are training to become the next generation of skilled construction workers, I must ask, who will build these projects you envision? We need to invest in the local construction workforce, just like what happened when Levi Stadium was built. You can help answer that question through this plan. You can insert language that A, encourages the use of local construction workers, and B, ensures apprentices are on these projects. Please adopt the workforce language proposed by my union and other mechanical crafts that were presented. I support the development that brings value to our community. Please do the right thing for apprentices and local residents who want to enter the trade so they can afford to raise their families here in Santa Clara. I support the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next public speaker we have is Michael. Michael, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Kadina. I'm an apprentice with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 332. So not everyone is going to be able to find a family supporting income working a technology job. I found a middle-class job because I had an opportunity to be accepted into a state of California approved apprentice program. Santa Clara County has a lot of low-wage service jobs and high-wage technology jobs with fewer and fewer jobs in the middle. Without encouragement, the projects that will be built because of the Patrick Henry Drive plan will likely have few apprentices like me working. That means less opportunity for people like me. I lived in Santa Clara since 2003, went to middle school and high school here. I'm married, have 2 daughters, a 1 and a 2-year-old. If it wasn't for the state-approved apprenticeship program, I honestly don't think I'd be living in Santa Clara. These development projects are bigger than just jobs and makes us feel like we're helping the city we grew up in. I'm very proud to say I was part of the new construction buildings of Santa Clara University and also the Niner Stadium. Sorry about that. These are memories I will never forget and get to pass on to my children by hiring local apprentices like me. You're also helping local businesses. We are the ones that spend our money locally and keep it here. With more job opportunities, it gives more locals the opportunities to join an apprenticeship like me, to start a family, stay local, and help build the community that helped build us. I support the development that this specific plan envisions. We need more housing, and this plan promises as many as 12,000 new units, including much needed affordable housing. I'm speaking in support of workforce policy proposed by the Silicon Valley MEPS. That policy will encourage apprentices will be employed on these development projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next public speaker we have is Mike Navarro. Mike, you have been unmuted.
Is he unmuted?
He has been. Mike, you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. So good evening. My name is Michelangelo Navarro, and I live here in Santa Clara. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of the Patrick Henry specific plan. I'm also a member of Local 104 Sheet Metal Union. I worked for 6.5 years as a sheet metal worker. I make a good living. I get health insurance and a pension. I also have been able to save my money to buy a house and raise my family here. I also spend my paycheck here. That means my taxes help pay for services my community needs. Every day, local construction workers compete for work with those who live nowhere close to our town, which enable out-of-town workers to spend their money where they live. We need to invest in a local construction workforce, just like what happened when the stadium was built. I urge you to adopt the workforce language that my local has proposed here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, does not look like there are any other hands raised from the public.
Okay, did staff want to comment on any of the public? I'm not sure if they would call them questions or comments.
May I take the first stab?
Sure.
So we heard a couple of questions about the placement of a new library within the specific plan area, and there was a lot of reference to the EIR, specifically Impact 15-5. I need to explain that when it comes to public services, the threshold of significance in an EIR is whether or not the new public services that would be demanded by this project would result in construction of new facilities that would have significant environmental impacts. In other words, is there going to be so much demand that we need to build something, and then that construction would result in environmental impacts? So this plan does not go as far, the EIR does not commit to building a new library. In fact, what it says is that particular library plans would be subject to discussions between the city and a future project applicant, and that a future library proposal would be subject to its own evaluation under CEQA. So I think one of the speakers referred to, having a mitigation measure to build a new library. In fact, there's no mitigation measure related to library services. It identifies a less than significant impact, and then it goes on to say that we will need to do additional environmental review when a library is constructed. The attorney for O2 Microsystems is concerned that our specific plan and our general plan will now be internally inconsistent because of this reference to the road connector that was in the original plan draft. The beginning of the specific plan says quite clearly that in December 2021, this is a direct quote, the Mission College Board of Trustees voted to not approve the proposed connector road from the Patrick Henry Drive plan area. The roadway connection is shown as the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan as a future alternate subject to reconsideration by the Board of Trustees. There is no ambiguity in the specific plan. This is presented as something that cannot go forward unless and until Mission College consents to it. So I see no internal inconsistency merely because we mentioned that there's this possibility of a future road if and when Mission College Board of Trustees consents to it. But outside that consent, we're not going to have that road go in. We heard quite a few comments from people advocating the insertion of language to encourage private developers to use a skilled and trained workforce. On this, I hate to be the wet blanket, but I need to put the brakes on this a little bit. I need to advise you that the National Labor Relations Act preempts the city from requiring the use of a skilled and trained workforce or unionized labor or prevailing wages. When the city acts as a regulator, we do not have the legal authority to require this. We cannot bake it into our specific plan. Now, the union doesn't go quite as far as that. They're asking for language to encourage the use of a skilled and trained workforce. But the lawyer in me gets very nervous with the word encourage because, again, we do not have any legal authority to require this. So how exactly do we encourage it if we cannot require it? Plus, as you heard me say earlier to Commissioner Cherukuru, much of this development will be subject to to be limited to objective standards. If we have this somewhat ambiguous requirement to encourage the use of a trained and skilled workforce, I don't think that would be consistent with the laws that require us to only use objective standards. I mean, would we be able to deny a project that doesn't respond to that encouragement? And putting it into our specific plan is a real interpretation problem. You know, if the city doesn't apply enough pressure to encourage, has the city violated the policy? And will a future city council read encourage as meaning require? Something that we know at the outset is outside our authority. So my recommendation is not to adopt the proposed language about encouraging the use of a skilled and trained workforce. Those were the legal questions that jumped out at me. Perhaps Mr. Davidson has additional responses. You're muted, John.
No, that was very complete. The main thing that I saw that was not addressed was the question about parking for the library and why is it not being required? The main thing is that there was no regulatory standard for parking for the library required. So we're not requiring one space for every 1,000 square feet of library area. That's the only thing that we were saying with that statement, that no parking would be required. Thank you. Otherwise, the responses are complete.
Okay. Trying to think of what comes first. Closing debate and then questions back towards staff. Would that be appropriate, Xander?
Sure.
Because some of my questions arise out of conversations that have just happened. So
I move to close public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Cherukuru made the motion. Lance seconded it. Elizabeth?
Sure, just one moment. Motion is to close public hearing. Chair Biagini?
Yes.
Commissioner Cherukuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Hero?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Ikezi?
Yes.
Commissioner Salim?
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I have some more questions, and it appears Commissioner Cherukuru likewise does, and Commissioner Salim. So let me start. Attorney Abby, with all due respect, I appreciate your concern from a legal standpoint about the different definitions of requirement versus encourage. But I think the reasonable person standard says there shouldn't be that kind of a debate because a reasonable person understands the difference. And I might tag back to, you know, you were quoting something, you know, I love you, Xander. You were quoting something in December 2021, trustees did not approve. So of course we couldn't go forward it with things changed. Well, this language doesn't require, it's just saying approve. And apparently I'm going to take a stab at this. If I heard John correctly, Mountain View has this language, Sunnyvale has this language, Newark has this language, and I don't think anybody, I mean, at least I haven't heard of any lawsuits over it, but I come back to, I don't see an issue if we're going to keep things that are kind of suppositions or interpretations. If we're going to keep things like trustees did not approve, so not to worry, you can't go forward. And I understand that. I'm not arguing that. then what is the problem with encouraging the use as opposed to requiring the use? Because at this point, looking at that language, I frankly don't see anything wrong with it, and I frankly think that it does drive stuff in the direction we'd all like to see happen. So, Xander, if you want to respond.
Before I do, I just want to make sure we're all working from the same set of information. You mentioned Mountain View and a couple other cities actually have this language
in something similar
in a specific plan document.
That's what I don't know.
Because I mean, my limited research indicated that it would be very novel putting this into a specific plan document. So I'd be very surprised to hear another jurisdiction had done that. But maybe one of the other commissioners is aware of well, regardless.
It comes down to encourage or require. And frankly, I'm not afraid of novel approaches if it drives behavior in a proper way.
This is Andrew Crabtree. I was just going to mention one thing I have seen is in the realm of community benefits. There'll be like a menu of things like contribution to parks or whatever on a list of potential benefits. And one thing I have seen is like a contribution to a workforce training program, something that may be operated by a city or a nonprofit. I'm not sure, but that's one thing I think that may have been the type of thing that was being referred to by the speaker.
I'd love to be able to interject. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Ricky Hero here. This language that has been adopted, I believe, at the city council level, not on a specific plan. We're talking about an overall community workforce type agreement. And that's citywide. It's not necessarily project specific. Just a point of clarification. My video is all messed up. I'm going to be logging out and logging in because I've got some problems here with my screen.
Okay. Well, just briefly, let me make sure again we're talking about the same thing. There's one situation where the city's acting as a regulator, putting into place standards that will be used on private developers on private projects. There's when the city is a market participant, when it's a city project, when it's city property, when it's city funding. That's a very different circumstance. And as you know, when we have city funding involved, we actually require payment of prevailing wage. We have the authority to do that. And it's an obligation not only of the city, but of the state. So I wonder if we're talking about the same circumstances. I mean, I could understand a broad policy statement saying that for any public works project, we will use a skilled and trained workforce. But I guess Commissioner Chair Biagini, I'm having trouble with the idea of putting language into this document when we don't know what the language means. You're asking us to put in a statement that we're going to encourage the use of a skilled and trained workforce. We have no legal authority to require it. What does that encouragement look like? You're putting this into a policy, the general plan that the staff are going to have to implement. How does that play out?
I could tell you the difference between encouragement and requirement. I mean, there's no, do I draft out a speech on that question? I mean, now I kind of wonder, too bad we couldn't have John maybe answer that question. But again, it's the word encouragement versus requirement. And to me, a reasonable person knows the difference. And I appreciate your legal concern on this. I really do, Xander. But Jesus, I know the difference between encourage and requirement. And I think everybody listening to this knows the difference between encouragement, requirement, possibility of a future, potential, not to worry, things could change. And I also understand what you're saying. It's one thing if it's a public works, it's another if it's a specific plan for this. But I actually think, well, I'm going to say it again. I think it's a good idea because I don't think there's a whole lot of argument between encouraging and requiring, and I'd be happy to help you in my non-legal beagle way draft up some language that demonstrates encouragement versus retirement. I'm not trying to be facetious here, but I think I appreciate your concern, but I think it's a good idea. And I'm noticing when I look at the participant list that there's an attendee now that has their hand up, and guess what? It's Mr. John. We have closed
Yeah.
public debate.
I suggest that we promote John Dalrymple to comment.
Okay. Should I go ahead and do that?
Well,
is there any objection?
Open public hearing again?
Yes. Is there any objection to opening public hearing again by the commissioners?
And just so you understand, this will mean you need to allow every public speaker the opportunity to speak.
Of course, I understand. So do I have a motion to reopen public input, public speaking?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, Elizabeth on the
Seconded
vote.
by Commissioner Bhatnagar.
I think
Yes,
I'm not
Elizabeth.
watching the screen, so if you could.
Yes,
let me know.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we are reopening public hearing. Chair Biagini,
Yes.
Commissioner Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Hero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Akazi,
Yes.
Commissioner Salame,
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes.
Thank you. Public hearing is reopened. And let's see. John, we will unmute you so you can speak.
John, you have been unmuted.
John, unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the comments that your city attorney made. He's raising the right questions, and we have been very careful. I've worked with city councils and planning commissions all over the Bay Area to help move city specific plans like this to intensification of development. And South San Francisco, Newark, Mountain View, and many other jurisdictions. I gave John a list of the various jurisdictions where this language has been placed into specific plans. And in some cases, it's a much more developed language. But the preemptive issue he raised, we've had researched legally, we have a legal opinion on. It's come up before, and it's really, that's why we frame it the way it is. We don't say, for example, that they participate in a JETC apprenticeship program, because those are just union programs. What we're just saying is that we want to encourage apprentices, right, who are participating in California approved state apprenticeship programs, could be union or non-union. This is not a union or non-union issue. This is just about whether the city, and this happens a lot if you look at specific plan language, lots of times they're aspirational goals, right, that you want to see happen in a general plan. But this is sort of that idea. You want to send a message, that as an outcome, as another community benefit. You want to encourage local hire. You want to encourage the use of apprentices and the payment of family supporting wages. And at no point that some of this language, like the South San Francisco language, has been in place for, I think, 8 years now. And and I think the Newark language for about 7 years. In Mountain View, I think about 4 years in their specific plan. And in no case has this language anywhere in the Bay Area been used to challenge the entitlement of a project. There's no legal basis for if we wanted to do that with this language to challenge the entitlement, and to go to the city and ask them not to approve a project because they didn't have these components. And we would never do that to our resources doing something that's not legally feasible. So I think he raised the right questions, but we have been very careful and how we frame the language. And again, it is in several specific plans. I provided a document to planning that with the exact language and which jurisdiction that language is from.
Okay, you're over your 2 minutes.
Got it.
What I'll do.
Thank you. I don't see any other speakers at this time.
Xander, comments or anybody from the commission?
A lot of commissioners with their hands up. Perhaps we should get their input.
Okay.
Should we close public hearing first again?
Well, if a commissioner has, I'm a little uncertain. If another question arises, I want to go back and forth between open and closing public debate. So let me ask it this way. I've got 1, 2, 3, and including me, that's 4 hands up. If you could indicate whether or not your questions are directed towards what the public speaker gave, or should we close public hearing? I see no, and Commissioner Ikezi, I don't see your picture, so I don't know if your question.
I'm not sure. Maybe I can ask my question, if I may.
I don't see an issue with that.
Oh, thank you. So my question is to the city attorney. If you want to be 100% about any language not creating a legal problem, will you need to do a research? And if you were to do research, do we need to postpone this hearing?
No. If the commission, I'm your advisor. You are the decision makers. You don't have to take my advice. If you want to go ahead with this tonight, if the vote is to include this language, it still has to go to city council. We will do some additional digging between now and the city council meeting so that we have a recommendation to the council as well. But no, I'm not recommending you postpone it either way.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So we should probably then have a motion to close public hearing again.
After you verify that there's no one else that wants to speak from the public, including people who've spoken before.
There you go. Elizabeth, do we have anyone else? I don't see.
No, I don't see any hands raised from the public.
Okay, then we'll go to the vote to close public hearing.
Move to close public hearing. Okay, go ahead.
I'll move to close public hearing. Clearly,
Second.
Commissioner Chair Koo, second. Yes.
There we go.
Okay, just one moment. Motion is to close public hearing. Chair Biagini?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Hero?
He may still be trying to get back on.
Let me move on. Oops, I can't get him off. Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
Commissioner Salam?
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hero, can you hear me? Okay, we'll go ahead and
I think he's back on. Commissioner Hero, you're back on, but your mic is muted.
His Zoom is frozen, I believe.
Boy.
So
we have a quorum.
yeah,
Yeah,
actually
we
I
do.
did put him as a yes, and I can change that if I need to, but right now, so the motion does pass.
All right. Thank you, Elizabeth. So we're back to discussion, and I know Commissioner Charakuru's up, followed by Commissioner Salam.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions, 2 unrelated. On the parking, John, was there actual in the CEQA document zones or locations where we can have public parking identified? Like where we know we are going to have retail, we know we have housing, of course, which will have its own parking. But for the retail, are they actually designated parking areas?
There are not designated parking areas, but each project would be required to provide parking. The specific question that I was responding to was the question about library parking. And just in that In that case, the plan does not require any parking for the library as a use.
It does not require parking for the library as a use, meaning that if the library is built, the parking would not be required as part of that project?
No, well, it would not be required from a regulatory standpoint. I'm sure that the city council, when they decide to approve a library, would also include parking as part of the project. Just there's no standard that says you have to provide a space for every 500 square feet of library space.
The city isn't regulating itself. The library would be a city facility. And so here we don't have standards. It's really for the city at the time in which it's designing the facility to find out the best number of parking spaces that would be appropriate.
But in the CEQA, then, would we have anticipated the parking from a transportation count?
In terms of square footage of the uses and the number of trips, yes.
Okay.
That is part of the, I think it's 310,000 square feet of non-residential uses. The civic uses are in that 310,000 square feet.
Okay, I just want to make sure so that we are clear to the public person who asked that parking is not regulated because it's a city. We are assuming it's a city library. So yes, we may not require of ourselves, but I can't imagine a library without parking being actually part of the scope of work. And that if there's ample CEQA coverage, that's what I want to make sure, that there's ample CEQA coverage for any potential parking that will come as scope.
The amount of traffic was envisioned in the EIR.
Okay.
Itself is not actually a CEQA impact.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. So now moving to the actual, other topic, which I'm fascinated and I'm truly grateful for all the representatives here who have come on behalf. As a resident of City of Santa Clara, I am grateful that we have an actual workforce that is in the trades. Somebody who works regularly, that's my bread and butter, who faces the shortage on trades and shortage on this kind of apprenticeship program being a deficit because it's not really a college program. I think it is definitely worthy of encouraging. And to the point that Andrew Crabtree made, as we write specific plan, we always have goals of the project. The specific plan is intended to do such and such. And we cover a lot of aspirations. And I'm saying aspirations as this is the vision of the city, this is the goals that the city would be. So I'm trying to see a fine line between the specific plan objective, where we say this is the goal of the project. It is anticipated to serve the city in all its glory with housing shortages, but why not also include language that says we encourage, as part of the overarching specific plan, local labor and an apprentice program. I mean, I know labor laws. I know we are going almost on a tangential. I'm not, again, just going to say, I'm not per se for union related project support. I'm not going there, will not go there. And I'm just trying to find the fine balance in adding language of an objective or a recommendation to city council that this project should continue to encourage. And if it's already in a charter and we have other policies or other prevailing wage laws, that if it's city project, aka library, we will automatically require it. That's good and encouraging. But why not just allow for the specific plan to also support, aka encourage, use of local labor and apprentice program as and when developers come in. Again, no mandates, no regulatory requirements, purely just an objective or a mission or a vision of the city in its goals. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Chair. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Cherakuru. Next up, Commissioner Salame, followed by Commissioner Kessie.
Okay, thank you. I really wish there was a way for us to encourage local workforce. I think I really do understand Xander's point, though, of not being able to put any mandates into the language. Perhaps it would be better for our city to list the things that we encourage, we find favorable in projects, going beyond the EV charger percentage limits, going beyond the limit of affordable homes within a project. These are things that we consider goals, objectives, and favorable characteristics of any given development. Rather than attach it directly to one specific project, I think it's more of a citywide goal to have these local workforces and all the other characteristics that we're really eager to see happen within our city. So I'm hoping that rather than us dwell specifically on the language for this one development, that we can actually escalate it to a higher level and bring that desire to a citywide all projects situation. And that's kind of outside the scope of this one meeting. So that's where I am on that. Thank you, Xander. You're a voice of wisdom and concern, often further than we necessarily feel personally we want to go, but I understand the legal implications. And this is another case where you can have two completely different perspectives on the same problem, and they're both right. Chair Biagini is completely right. We want local workforce. Xander is completely right. We can't mandate it. So it feels to me it's like you want to earn brownie points with the city. But the problem with earning brownie points is you go into any bakery, you can't buy a single brownie with any of them. So there's a limit to how far we can take things legally. So I'm just pointing out the obvious. I'm sorry I'm using up so many words to do it, but I hope that we can bring and encourage these characteristics to the citywide development effort. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salam. Next, I had Bhatnagar, but I don't see his hand up now. So I'm going to move to Commissioner Ikezi.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for joining you late because of a work conflict. So if the questions I'm going to ask are already covered, then I really apologize. Please just let me know and I'll, just shut up. First question. So is the specific architectural review going to take place in the same way that the related projects are being reviewed? It's ultimately handled by the Director of Community Development?
Architectural review will now be conducted entirely at staff level using objective standards.
Okay, thank you. And
would like to add on though that it is a different process than what we're using for the related project, which was really unique, being through that master community plan process.
Okay, master community plan process. Okay, next question. So I saw in the staff report about ABAG. How much is this project going to help toward what we need to do for ABAG?
Are you referring to the regional housing application?
Yes, yes.
It's going to be a massive help. It's essential to hitting our housing element goals, but it's 12 units. Our regional housing needs allocation for the next compliance period is roughly 12,000 units. Now,
okay, wow.
Now it's not going to be one for one because a lot of that's going to be in the lower income categories, and much of this not going to be lower income. So this is not going to just wipe our RHNA off the board, not by a long shot. But it will take care of all the above market, and will hopefully make a huge dent in the affordable housing obligations, given that this will be required to have at least 15% affordable units.
Right. Thank you. TDM of 20%, is that aggressive enough?
That's the current standard from our climate action plan, what we've applied to other specific plans. It's something that's the standard. It has been the standard for other specific plans that we've adopted.
I understand, but every time this comes up, a lot of people say, well, we need to do better. We need to be more aggressive. And
I think Commissioner Ikezi too, the big significant difference about this is there's the TDM goal of 20%, and then there's also shuttle that's going to be provided once there's a sustainable number of people in the plan area. As you may not have caught that, actually, Commissioner Casey.
I missed it,
Yeah,
sorry.
so this plan will also be responsible for launching a TMA to utilize like a alternative transportation option around North Santa Clara, connecting people in Patrick Henry Drive to other areas, area transportation options, as well as potential destinations. And you know, something like a shuttle, something like an on-demand van, those are options that could be implemented. There is a specific trigger that was created, and that trigger is a two-part trigger. One, Patrick Henry Drive on its own, I think it's 3,500 residential units.
Yeah, let me put it back up.
Would have to be occupied for that shuttle to start. We have some other triggers along the way in the plan, but really, when would you see something like this begin? And then also recognizing that staff's intention is to, with these other large projects that are making their way through, add conditions so that that TMA has other riders. We have other projects that are in the pipeline that are likely to be able to contribute riders and financial support. So here, this Patrick Henry Drive plan would launch the shuttle really when it's got an occupancy level to be sustainable, because it is quite costly to operate these things. So that's what's really in the plan is the triggers for when that begins operation, and really also to make it very clear that Patrick Henry Drive and the development in it is responsible for the creation of this TMA and launching the TMA.
Thank you very much. I have two more quick questions on the transportation, if I may. Then, the shuttle. Is it going to be paid out of the traffic impact fee that the developers will pay?
It is going to be privately funded, and we're not using existing fees. So that's something that the city is not taking revenue on. It is something that will be privately funded and privately managed with the city's oversight.
Okay. Second question. I think during the day, like a huge chunk of traffic in anywhere is the delivery people, you know, Amazon, food delivery. Are there any things that the city can do for like a big project like this to kind of manage that better? Because, you know, if you have 12,000 people ordering food at night, I mean, the traffic is going to be significant, I'm sure. Is this something that we've thought about?
John, I don't know if you have thoughts. I have some thoughts, but I'm curious about yours first.
Yeah, no, I'll let you go first.
Okay, thanks. So, you know, that's an excellent perspective, Commissioner Casey. We don't have areas that are specifically called out in the plan for, you know, drop off and loading and drop off. Those are things that when we get to like individual projects, we look at those individual projects. And so I don't have like a master plan for you in terms of, and the thing that complicates this too is that not all of this comes online at the same time. Right. There's phasing, right? So a part of how we have to approach it is, you know, in a way, project by project, because we may have a project here and then it might take several years for another project to get built. So as much as we might want a holistic approach to it, I think we do have to kind of look at the obvious demand for drop-off zones, short-term parking, really at a project by project level.
Oh, okay. Maybe lockers too, food lockers, delivery lockers.
You know, we haven't actually, you know, that's not anything that we require, and it's not like the building code, for instance. Right. However, you know, I definitely know that the market around residential housing is evolving because they know that their tenants want these amenities, and especially if you're building a new construction project, you're going to provide those kind of a modern amenities for your tenants. But that's not something specific into the plan.
Got it. Thank you very much. Are you?
Thank you, Commissioner Huang.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually, yeah, my 2 cents on the language. encouraged and required. Yeah, I think first, what's the purpose of the specific plan, right? If we put too many language we cannot enforce, I mean, it is just a waste of time for people to read it, right? You cannot enforce it. So I support Sander. Just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, you can say free speech, right? Put in the document. Everybody likes free speech, but why put there, right? It's not a purpose for this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong. Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I really appreciate Commissioner Salem's point about having different views and both being, so-called correct. I wouldn't like to use the word right, but at least correct in a context. So today we are talking about some aspirational aspects. I thought I'll get something out of my chest as well. And this is really just for the record. I don't think anybody needs to respond. It's always bothered me why the group of people that make housing for others don't often have houses to live in themselves. Why is it so? So amongst things like, for example, here we have 15% would be affordable housing. Would the city or jurisdictions mind putting some language in that that group of housing, or let's say even any other housing that we're building, would be first offered to the group of people that are actually building it, right? They may take it, they may not take it, but if they do, they get some benefit, and that encourages them to stay. You get a sale early on and everything else, all the other benefits that come off of it. That's my question or thoughts, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Commissioner Harrow.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'd like to piggyback on what Commissioner Salem had said. I think that the language in the proposal by the labor organizations is not quite firm enough. There's no teeth with it. Xander was right. It's making a suggestion is never going to work out. They're going to do what they're going to do. And the truth of the matter is, this whole community workforce agreement type language needs to be promoted to city council, and not necessarily through a specific plan. I think that that it should be proposed to council at the city council level, and I don't know that we have the teeth to really enforce it through this specific plan. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrow. I'll make some, I don't see other hands up. Let me make some comments. I definitely appreciate your comments on it, Commissioner Salem. But let me offer this up. 2 people are right, so to speak. And do I think that it should be at a higher level, city council? Well, frankly, yes. But I also recognize that sometimes the best way to move something forward to a higher level is when you take incremental steps to be there. And I sort of don't like feeling like I'm going against our Xander's opinion, but I too, not from a legal point of view, am wildly familiar with the National Labor Relations Board, and we're not requiring it. I think that satisfies that part. But I definitely appreciate what Xander has said. But I think the steps towards getting this to be something citywide are probably going to have to start a little smaller. I don't think by adding a 7th, I think that's what it's 7th principle is causing harm or causing too much to read. And I think it aspires to kind of repeat what Commissioner Cherukuru said, it aspires to the kind of goal that I don't think any of us are against, because it's benefits to the worker, it's benefits to our city. It just is all around a better goal that someday I do hope gets to the city council level. But we can start here. And the fact that it has worked in, I'm probably going to say the cities wrong, South San Francisco, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Newark, that canary's already been in the mines in more than one city, and has certainly marinated for a number of years. And there hasn't been any pushback legally. I don't see us as taking a novel concept too far by putting it in this language for this specific plan, with the hopes that down the road it can eventually end up at a city council front. So that's my feeling on that issue. There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and of course now I'm looking for my notes, and that was the two alternatives. And I just wanted to kind of reiterate on page, oh boy, help me, John. The page about whether or not we do 80% or whether we do 3 different levels. I hear Rena I see Rena nodding her head. Is
Yeah,
that something that would require a motion? Because if we don't make that motion, the other one, yeah, are you telling me yes, Rena?
Yes.
That would
Yeah,
require a motion. Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that. Those are my comments. And since we're on round 2 here, Commissioner Harrow, your hand is up.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the language that was submitted by the trade crafts as bullet point number 7.
A second. Oh, go ahead.
Go
Chair.
ahead.
Go ahead, Chair.
Commissioner Cherukuru seconded it. Commissioner Harrow made the motion. Can we go to the vote?
May I interject?
Yes.
The will of the commission, it would be appropriate to include that when you are voting on whether or not to approve the specific plan, which is recommendation number 2. Before you take that action, it's necessary to act on the environmental document. So if I could ask you to withdraw that motion.
Hold that motion until and you'll tell us when, you promise us you'll tell us when the appropriate time is.
I'm not that sneaky, don't worry.
I know.
Motion withdrawn.
Okay, so then are we ready to proceed with the recommendations and motions on the specific plan?
So
I don't
moved.
have the language. I heard
again,
I don't have the language, but I'm going to wing it for the first one. Adopt the CEQA recommendations along with for the specific plan for Patrick Henry's specific plan. Sorry, I'm going to go the first. Go ahead.
John, you're able to get that slide up, right? Because
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that'd be
thought I
helpful.
Somebody hopes. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about
believe
that. I thought I
We're
was sharing
talking
the
about
screen.
recommendation 1, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
That's what I believe,
Approve
but
and certify the final EIR prepared for the Patrick Henry Development Specific Plan, including CEQA findings and a statement of overriding considerations.
Yeah.
So the
So moved.
motion is by Commissioner Cherukuru, seconded by Commissioner Hero. Give me one moment. So this is to approve staff recommendation 1.
Does this carry the proposed road with it, or is that a separate issue?
The proposed roadway is in the specific plan. So again, if you wanted to amend the specific plan or recommend amending the specific plan, that would be with recommendation number 2.
okay,
So we'll continue with the motion we have on the floor.
yes,
Chair Biagini,
yes.
Commissioner Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Hero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Akezi,
Yes.
Commissioner Salam,
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes.
Thank you, and the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. We have 4 more recommendations.
This is your moment, Chair.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion, the same one that Commissioner Harrow made. Is that like comma? Well, help me out here, Xander. Would that be approve the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan, a specific plan consistent with the Government Code Section 65450-65457, including adding what Ricky said? I don't have that paperwork in front of me. The language, item number 7, building a vibrant middle class, encouraging the use of, it's directly off of the letter from the, what was it? Silicon Valley MEPS, something like that. Yeah, Silicon Valley MEPS. Is that the way to do it, Xander, so that we get it in there with the inclusion of this?
That's well framed. There may need to also be an amendment to add the affordable housing language if that's the desire of the commission, because section 4.4.1 of the specific plan specifically references the 80% AMI. If it's the desire of the commission to have 3 income categories, that also needs to be part of the motion.
Then let me fix my motion to say what I just said about following the recommendation number 2, comma, adding the language, building a vibrant middle class from the Silicon Valley MEPS. And then the last part would be, I'm looking for that language.
Excuse me, Chair Biagini, adding the language to, repeat that please one more time, about a vibrant middle class.
Building a vibrant middle class. Do you want me to read it?
No, this is good enough. It's from the letter that we have.
Right. It's that new section 7, building a vibrant middle class.
Okay.
That italicized language. And then I am running through all these pages. Of course, now that I want to find it, I don't find it. It was the second option about the.
John, do you want to put up that slide?
There we go. Adding language that we recommend 15% affordable units split between 3 affordability levels, 50%, 80%, and 120% AMI.
Second.
Can you go back to that slide, John? You just had it up.
Yep.
Yeah, it's page 14.
Well,
there it is.
Before we move on, I might have a friendly amendment.
Oh, who's that?
Lance.
Okay, Lance.
Yeah, I think this is the point where we have to mention the proposed road. Is it possible to request that it move to an appendix or an addendum to not lose the context of the fact that the investigation and the information is available, but to remove it from the official document and maybe move it to an investigated options appendix?
I'll accept that as a further part of my motion.
I second
that. I apologize, Chair. I have more legal concerns. You're suggesting modifying the specific without specifically identifying the pages and exactly what.
Oh boy.
Doing.
Oh Lord. Are you talking about Lance's modification of my motion?
Yes. I mean,
we can go through and identify specific pages where it's still present. The objective is to remove the mention of that proposed road from all of the official documents in order to meet the requests of both the lawyer and the other commissioners, but to maintain staff's work by having it available as an appendix or other notable item within the same document.
Okay. My legal opinion, in contrast to the other issue we were just talking about, I'm taking a much more liberal view of this. I do not believe that edit is necessary from a perspective of protecting the city. I mean, that's where I'm coming from on everything tonight. It's all about how can I best protect the city. I do not believe that edit is necessary from a legal protection standpoint. I disagree with the attorney for O2 Microsystems. I do not believe the document is internally inconsistent.
All right. Is there a way to alternately at least diminish its level of visible importance by graying it or doing something to hide the fact that this is not what we consider a built-in piece of the document? You understand what I'm saying? We have to diminish its importance within the document to avoid confusion.
I understand where you're coming from. The Planning Commission is required under state law to review the specific plan and make a recommendation on the specific plan before it goes to City Council.
Right.
You're talking about a number of edits. I mean, we could take a 5-minute recess right now, and I could page through and find the specific pages and then see if it meets with the commission's approval.
I would like some counsel from my other commissioners if they feel it's a valuable effort.
Yeah, this is Chair Biagini. I think it is. Andrew, let me try this. You talked about, I don't remember where it was, trustees did not approve. What if you just simply, I'm assuming that's somewhere in the bazillion pages we have. What if that was just highlighted or bolded? So in other words, it's very clear that the trustees did not approve. Does that help if it's in the document that I think it's in? And does that meet what you're talking about? Because I'm with you on this, Commissioner Salam, but I'm struggling. I don't want to make this an unwieldy motion, but I want us to get our thoughts in there.
Can I maybe make a suggestion, which
Sure.
is the reference in the actual specific plan is figure 4.6.2
Right.
alt circulation. It's alternative circulation. So maybe where every time that figure is referenced, it could be added subject to the approval of the Mission College Board of Trustees. So that's it can be very clear that that circulation is only available if approved by the Board of Trustees. That's just, you know, it's clearly an alternative, but it's only a viable alternative if the decision makers approve it. So that's just a suggestion I have if we want to be clear that like why is it in the plan yet not our like the main proposal, right? Because it's not approved, right? That the one that's approved is in front of us. The one that's not approved, we will put subject to the approval of the Board of Trustees. That's just like maybe a quick fix I was suggesting. I don't know if Xander has thoughts.
Yeah, as long as we reach the objective of diminishing its apparent importance to the document.
Well, Ms. Brio has just suggested a very specific change that's easy to implement. So if that's
totally acceptable to me because I think it meets the requirement. So that will be my friendly amendment too.
And I'm okay with that. And okay, Xander, tag, you're it.
We're good to go.
Okay.
Proceed with your vote. We have a motion and a second, and now you can discuss and vote. Thank you for working through that with me.
Thank you. Now we have to give Elizabeth a moment.
Well, we're almost good to go, but the friendly amendment from Commissioner Salam, could you please provide that language again?
Or maybe Rena could help with that.
Yeah, please have Rena help because we bounced in 3 different directions, but I want staff to be happy with it because they're the ones working with the document.
Yeah. So the motion would include added language to the phrase figure 4.6.2 alt circulation.
Phrase 6 point what?
Yeah. 4.6.2 ALT colon circulation. And you could put in parentheses like, not parentheses, quotes, subject to the approval of the Mission Board of Trustees. Maybe I have an extra of there. Subject
to the Mission College Board of Trustees?
Mission College Board of Trustees.
Okay, this is good. Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve staff recommendation 2, including adding language, building a vibrant middle class, adding language for 2 possible affordability scenarios. And then we will put the language that was on slide 14. A friendly amendment from Commissioner Salame, adding language to the phrase 4.6.2 alt circulation subject to the approval of the Mission College Board of Trustees. Okay, so the motion was made by
Chair Biagini.
Thank you. Seconded by
Commissioner Chair Kuru.
Right,
By Commissioner Salame.
Lame.
It's a lame.
It's so late.
Okay.
I mistooted the second of the friendly amendment.
Chair Biagini?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Kuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Hero? I think we've lost Commissioner Hero. Commissioner Hero, if you can hear me, if you'd like to text me with your reply, I think that's okay, Xander?
Yes.
So if you could text me, that'd be great. We'll move on. Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Akazi?
Yes.
Commissioner Salame?
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Commissioner Hero?
Yes.
Again, oh, good, thank you. Even better.
I logged back in, but I needed to be promoted and somebody finally did that. So
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, where are we on the agenda? That was the only item under public
Oh,
hearing.
Well, there's
we have another
2 more
slide of
motions.
actions.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Yes, we do. Thank you, Rena.
Actually,
Okay.
to your point, though, I think Chair Biagini, we didn't show you all the motions.
Yeah,
when
put that screen back
Yeah,
up. We
we'll
have
put 'em
number
back up.
3 and 4.
Yeah, hold on.
I mean,
one
if you
second.
could, John.
Yep, hold on 1 second.
All right. Okay, here's number 3, and then there's a number 4. So do I?
John, can you just show them what number 4 is so that they know what number 4 is in advance?
Yeah, it's the zoning
code.
recommendation. So general plan first and then zoning code.
Mr. Hero or Bhatnagar, if you'd like to take a shot at these. Or Ikizzy, I'm just giving others a chance to
Others a
give the
chance.
motion.
Spread the wealth.
I guess I would recommend a motion to approve Article 3 here, the third requirement, a recommendation from staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have Bhatnagar motion and Huang second, if I got that right.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. One moment. Motion is to approve staff recommendation 3. Chair Biagini?
Yes.
Commissioner Charakuru?
Yes.
Commissioner Hero?
Yes.
Commissioner Wang?
Yes.
Commissioner Casey?
Yes.
Commissioner Salame?
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
That's an extremely dense abbreviation list of terms. I'm boggled at a few of them.
I think they all are tonight. Do we have a motion on recommendation number 4?
Moved. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
make a motion. Yeah.
And I'll second it.
And Chair, may I jump in? This would be
Yes.
a location where it would be necessary to modify the recommendation to include the different affordability levels for the affordable housing.
Okay.
This includes the affordable housing language in it. So the motion would be to recommend approval of this ordinance with modifications to target the 3 income categories for the affordable housing as we're displaying the slide.
Got it. Is that, see, who made the motion? Commissioner?
Yeah, sure.
He's good with it. And as a seconder, I'm good with what Xander said.
So I can't
Can I
amend.
put that in the motion?
I can't amend the
said?
motion. I was just asking Commissioner Huang to clarify that
Repeat?
that's what we meant. So it was Commissioner Huang's original motion.
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve the recommendation number 4 and make the amendment to about the affordable housing section in the specific plan. Is that correct?
Perfect.
Thank you.
So what I have is to approve staff recommendation 4, modify the language to target the 3 income categories for affordable housing.
Yes.
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 One second. Chair Biagini,
Yes.
Commissioner Cherukuru,
Yes.
Commissioner Hero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
Commissioner Casey,
Yes.
Commissioner Salam,
Yes.
Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Xander will of course correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that covers this topic. He's wiping his hands clean of it. All right. I appreciate, I mean, there was a lot of conversation. This was a huge job by staff, and I absolutely appreciate all the work done by staff, the comments by the commissioners, and the comments by our esteemed attorney, Xander. But I think this would be the time now where we could move on to reports of commission, board liaison, and committees. So I don't see Xander saying, no, wait. So can we get to announcements and other items? Are there any announcements by staff or commissioners?
I just wanted to share the news that probably entire Bay Area, probably many in the nation know, on the passing away of John Arriaga, a well-known tycoon of our Bay Area, probably one of the first billionaires who was responsible for many of the land commercial estate development in this valley. Huge, of course, backup to Stanford University, but was also, I think, an alumni of Santa Clara University. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But just acknowledging that he was one of the first billionaires who sold again to Google, the Intuits, the Cisco's that are there today as commercial. So right next to Sobrato, he was one big name, John Arriaga and Perry. So just
Thank you.
acknowledging.
Thank you for letting us know, because I wasn't aware. I don't know how I missed it. Thank you, Commissioner Cherukuru. A big part of this valley. We have a hand up by Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Yeah, just a quick addition to what Commissioner Cherukuru just mentioned. John Arriaga's nephew, I believe, Jeff Arriaga, was manager of he managed one of these buildings in the Patrick Henry Drive area. And I know that for a fact because I worked with him on some special glazings on active smart windows that John Arriaga promoted, and Jeff Arriaga got us to install for his buildings in this area of Patrick Henry Drive that we were talking about so much today. Just a side note. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Maybe what we could do then is adjourn in honor of John Arriaga.
I was hoping that would be the case, only because he has been a huge figure.
Influence. Yeah, no, I think, thank you. I think that would be entirely appropriate. Any other announcement or other items? Commissioner Ikezi.
Thank you. I forgot to ask yesterday at the SB9 study session, but in the previous planning commission meeting when Xander gave us a brief on SB9, I had a question about ownership, which may be similar to the the rental unit question that the mayor had, but does the city attorney have any information on what happens with the ownership, occupancy requirements, and other requirements when the property is owned by a trust? What if multiple families own the property, etc.?
Yeah, if it's owned by a trust, the trustee would need to be the owner after splitting the lot, would need to be an owner occupant for 3 years after splitting the lot. The statute is written in the form of the person who applies is the one who has to be the owner occupant. So if there are multiple owners, it's just basically whoever signs the application form is the one that ends up having to live there or having an intention to live there for 3 years.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you very much.
I might want to note also for Commissioner Casey that there was a letter sent out today inviting questions. I believe tomorrow is the deadline. And
well, yeah, everyone was in the study session, and if you can gather your questions and send them, those would be questions you had, maybe that didn't get answered. That will allow our Director of Community Development to go ahead and respond to all of them, and we'll compile all the questions and answers. So the email was sent to all commissioners this afternoon, if anyone wants to take a look, if you haven't seen it yet.
Thank you very much.
Well, the good news about that, though, is submitting the question through that process will hopefully guarantee that an answer is captured and made available to others. So, because we might be out of context a little bit here, since I don't think that was on our agenda. So that would be great if you could submit that also. That's all. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll move to Commissioner Travel and Training reports and/or requests to attend trainings. No hands are up.
I think we were notified. Thank you, Elizabeth, for registering for the State of the Valley. Much appreciated. Again, a huge benefit to our city and for Planning Commission to be part of that.
Thank you. I was going to comment that the registrations took place for all of the different trainings. So check your emails. They should be coming, confirmation should be coming direct to your city email addresses.
I received the email. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Commissioner Huang?
Yeah, so I mean, for the email to confirm the learning, it's sent out already? I haven't received anything yet.
We could talk tomorrow about this if you want, but if other commissioners did receive it, I mean, you might want to check your spam folder, and if not, then you and I can talk tomorrow and we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Confirm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Commissioner Huang. We will move to Director of Community Development reports, Planning Commission budget updates. There we go.
We do have a report, expenses for the State of the Valley Conference and the League of California Cities Planning Commissioners Academy. That was a total of $2,745. Your balance is $10,382.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Upcoming agenda items.
Yeah, so actually, we may be connecting with the commissioners about our next meeting, possibly not having agenda items. Obviously, we are just brought this massive plan forward to you all, and we do have some other massive bodies of work. We have our Freedom Circle focus area that's coming up shortly, but not for the next meeting. And we also have all of our zoning code work, and we have SB 9 work. So all of that's coming, but it won't be ready for our next meeting, which is on, I believe, February 16th.
Yes.
So I did also look at the rhythm of our other work, and we did get an appeal. It's not ready yet to go on February 16th. So we're just going to confirm that we don't have other agenda items, but we may be reaching out to the commissioners to let you know that because of no items on the agenda, we would suggest perhaps canceling the meeting.
Is there any conversation around the meeting to create a list of objectives and priorities for upcoming meetings? That I think we talked about it before, where the commission could propose things that we were hoping to agendize and also to work on. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, I did.
Commission?
You know, I think I'll need to go back and see just the city council's direction on just the commission setting. Like, obviously you have your responsibilities in the chart, well, specifically, I think in the charter, actually. And so definitely in terms of feedback on training, that's always what I would like feedback on to help you guys expend your budgets. But in terms of like taking on additional work items or telling staff, hey, we really want you to work on this or this, that's the direction of the council. So I can go back and look at kind of what the discussion was related to that. But I mean, I think certainly about in general, giving staff feedback on, you know, the training budget. And I think we have some, you know, we have brought some trainings forward. So I wouldn't mind. I don't know if we want to assemble the entire meeting to talk about the training budget. We can definitely talk about that in another meeting. How would you all like me to proceed? Would you just to get feedback, even chair, if we didn't have agenda items, would you like us to convene a meeting to talk about like training? Or would you like us to add that discussion on to the next meeting, which would then be in March?
Let me say my 2 cents. I'm a little concerned that the amount of work on staff, which is beyond huge right now, generally results in a whole lot of work for the Planning Commission to sort through all the documentation and the like. I'm wondering if it might be better, and I want to hear from my fellow commissioners, to do just what you're talking about as a separate meeting. Lance, what do you think?
I'm hoping, yeah, that we could build a list of wish list, basically, of things that we think we contribute to meaningfully for the city, with the consideration that we're not trying to overburden staff, but also to have an opportunity for us to get some comments in on some of the directions we're taking for our development objectives. Like, very simply, the ability to build a wish list of things for development. I'm sorry, for developers to target for their efforts, so that they can earn some brownie points. I know that's very vague, but I've seen this done in Sunnyvale and in Palo Alto, where the commissions come together and build a wish list of things that their commissions could be able to participate in. Yeah, and I'm certainly, you know, trying to respect Rena's, Elizabeth, and others' times. I'm not saying go research 50,000 things, just a couple of things that maybe we can make bigger contributions to.
If I could insert 2 things, because one, the city council is actually doing its priority setting on February 8th, right? So for the next fiscal year, that's sort of that point in time in which they're allocating work costs, I should say, dollars, and also like staff work on this. Like, we realize you're working on all these things, but this is a priority. We want you to work on this. And these are the other things we won't have you work on. Or we're willing to throw money at these things because they're not, I don't mean throw money. That's a bad expression, but you know, we're willing to fund these things, right? And they have the ability to do that. So that's going to happen before this next meeting that we're going to have as a planning commission, right? So I would encourage, if you are thinking about things and you think that you want to brainstorm them or have ideas and you would like to talk to staff about them, please connect with me. I'm happy to do that so that you could present them at that meeting, because that's like honestly kind of timely. And when the council, and when the council is going to be doing this, they do this really usually in a big way once a year, but then they will revisit their list in the middle of the year. That's just been kind of how they've worked. You know, we still can go through the process of talking about the things that the Planning Commission thinks are good things to be done, and obviously just sending that as a memo to the council, that when another opportunity presents itself, that they could consider, they know what the commission's ideas are and then the costs are. So it's more, they wouldn't act on it in the immediate future, but it's more just, okay, let's commemorate what are those things that, you know, the commission thinks are valuable work items or valuable policy actions. So we could certainly do something like that, but I just wanted to share the timing of it is going to miss this like priority setting process, but it's still not, I'm not saying it's not valuable. It's just, you know, it would probably take a while to get implemented or, you know, considered.
So
Yeah,
in
I
other
think
words,
that would have made it more helpful to have done this much earlier then, clearly. This is a classic case of we hope we could do this and now it's too late. Yeah, that's disappointing. I also wonder how much of these conversations we can have amongst ourselves without creating Brown Act concerns. And I'd love to be able to talk to Chair Biagini or Commissioner Casey and others about some of the things that I find important for the city moving forward and carry that suggestion to the council. But as you said, we've missed the opportunity for the 8th for priority setting, but there must be other ways we can help convey ideas to them without.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning, you know, that's just the set time where the council does all that. It's not to say that this exercise isn't important or, you know, I still think there's value in it. It's just there's like, you know, an immediate date where if people felt as a personal, you know, an individual, you have something that you want to bring forward to the city council, there's the date for that. But still, for the commission to have like a discussion about these things, we can certainly use the 16th for that.
Yeah. Okay. But it helps to emphasize how important it is not to let it slide or let other canceled meetings go by when we had opportunities to do these kind of things when it was still time to convey it to the council. Thank you.
okay, so have we given the kind of direction that says if there's nothing on the agenda, let's go with the 16th anyway, or no? I mean, what's your suggestion, Commissioner Salim? You want to go with the 16th, even if there's nothing on the
I
agenda?
think we have the
that we can
opportunity to have it put on the schedule and then if necessary, cancel it with a reasonable notice. But I just don't want to I want to make sure that we're not staging staff time just to waste it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but
so I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
Exactly.
Does that mean?
Because I didn't know what that means either. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, I'd like to have that time kept on the calendar, but no, I don't want you to schedule it if it means wasting resources to prepare for it. Do you understand?
I
If
think what
you
he
can tell us.
means is put it on the schedule and then we can always cancel it a few days ahead if there's nothing on the agenda, because I don't think putting that idea plus all the other things you're working on the same day is a good idea. So I think, you know, we'll hold that meeting and maybe we can all weigh in separately so it's not a Brown application, you know, Brown Act violation by the Friday before to say, hey, here's a couple of my ideas, so I'm gonna put it to you in writing, but at this point, you got your hands full, so let's go ahead and cancel it, or let's go ahead and continue it, and then majority wins. Is that what you said?
So I do have a suggestion. I think we could do like a limited time meeting of an hour to talk about, you know, policies of interest to the Planning Commission, just to get some sort of dialogue going. And that's not really meant to say after an hour discussion, we're going to feed that to the city council, because the timing, as we just said, it's not the best timing. But we could then calendar 2 other times or another time in the year, certainly more in the November timeframe, which then we could funnel those specific comments at that time that, you know, as you know,
in advance of next year.
Sometimes you need more than one meeting to talk about things. So I still think that there's value. We probably don't want it to be like an open-ended evening. You know, we could say like 1 hour meeting to talk about high level, policy work that the Planning Commission may be interested in, wanting to do more research on, that another meeting, we could flesh out further.
Prior to the 20.
Yeah, and I also want to be respectful of the commission's time, because you all are here, staying late and such. So I want you to feel like it's a useful for your time as well.
That sounds good to me, because I think then we can put some things out there that we can revisit in a way in which we meet the deadline for the 2023 priorities. Commissioner Charakudu, your hand is up.
Yeah, so just a suggestion. I mean, we have an item on the agenda, committees. Have you considered ad hoc committees which does not violate Brown Act, and then the 3 individuals or, as needed, can brainstorm and bring that as an awareness at the next real Planning Commission meeting that these are potential topics. So why not consider establishing just an ad hoc committee and letting the ad hoc members meet at will?
Does that work, Rena?
If the chair would like to, I think, Xander, if the chair would like to establish an ad hoc committee and have 3 members, and all of you are versed in the Brown Act, where you wouldn't have serial meetings, you understand those obligations, right? I mean, Xander, if that was the will to create an ad hoc committee to discuss kind of policy topics that the Planning Commission's interested in, would that be acceptable?
Well, it's certainly within the power of the Planning Commission to do that. I'm just trying to scratch my brain on whether or not we need to agendize the creation of the ad hoc committee.
So typically, at least with HLC, this isn't just my 4 years in HLC, that we used to have a lot of ad hoc committees, and it was a regular agendized topic. But we did that in the June timeframe when we were actually doing the, I think the allocation for the year. The chair, the nominees, and then the new ad hoc committee formations. I don't know if the timeline is helpful for reference. I think we can form at any time. That's just my 2 cents from my perspective.
Well, I mean, if you had an agenda item on, parking in downtown, and then at the end of that discussion, you said, you know what, let's form an ad hoc committee to talk about this more. I think that would be clearly within your authority.
So we could meet for a 1-hour time frame on the 16th and have a discussion about an ad hoc committee and make that a recommendation out of the 1 hour, more or less, February 16th meeting. How's that, Xander?
Absolutely.
Well,
okay.
I like that. Stepping stones.
Makes sense, Rena?
Yeah, so at our next meeting, and we may have an agenda item, I don't think we are going to, but in the event, it's going to be a light agenda. So we will add an hour discussion to, high level topics about of the, policy interest to the Planning Commission, or just topics in general, that the Planning Commission wants to provide input on. And then
I'm happy to provide.
We will add a separate motion. I'll have Xander look at the agenda, which references the
ad hoc,
taking action on the creation of an ad hoc committee.
Yeah. It doesn't help to pre-fill the item list of things that we'd hope to be able to talk about, like directly sending something to Elizabeth or someone who's managing the meeting. Because there's 3 things that I'd hoped that we could discuss. None of them a full hour's worth of conversation. Do you see what I'm saying? Or does that all move to the ad hoc
So
committee?
Rena, should we have commissioners go ahead and send the information and we can put it on the agenda, the specific items? Is that what you're asking, Commissioner Salang?
Yes.
I like that from a Brown Act perspective, getting the information in advance of the meeting as to what you're going to be talking about. Why don't the commissioners send to staff, not to each other, the topics that they'd like to discuss, and then staff can create a high-level description of that for the agenda. We can figure, oh, these items all fall within the category of X, and we'll list the categories, and we can have the discussion. And then at the end of it, you can form an ad hoc committee.
Because that was exactly what I was describing, Rena and Elizabeth. No one else. I would feel sad about that, but I would be okay with just firing directly at staff as
So
hopefully they can.
because we're going to collate these and
Yeah,
have
that would
to
be
get their agenda reviewed. I guess the date we would request is by February 4th, by no later than February 4th. Your topics would be sent to Elizabeth and myself.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
And I'm going to second Rena there in that we want to be mindful of people. I work in a very high intense, so this is all time commitments. So if we don't have to meet, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood. All right. Let's see where we were on upcoming agenda items. Oh, we have a hand up. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, that's totally okay. You were looking down and I had just at that time raised my hand. Just a reminder, the meeting as we are planning on the 16th, that will be a public meeting.
Yes.
Right. So we may have our own discussions and so forth, but clearly any member of the public can join in and have an opportunity to speak if they so desire, right?
Correct.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Then let's move to city council actions.
Yes. So since our last meeting, we had city council last night. I am not going to recap the SB9 joint study session, but the rest of the agenda also had a lot of items of interest for perhaps the Planning Commission. So there was a contract awarded to MIG for consultant services for preparation of the city's housing element. That's work that's going to be coming to the Planning Commission, and staff has been working for quite a while and very fast and furious. That's another body of work we didn't even talk about, right? that is a big consumption of our time and will be going in front of the Planning Commission. Action on agreement with We Hope for mobile hygiene services, and as well as modifications, a resolution to allow for modified parking regulations on El Camino Real. So this is to allow for the removal of off-street parking so that phased bicycle lanes can get implemented. And then a agreement with Services for Home Base to establish a homelessness task force, and just letting folks know the homelessness task force is going to ultimately provide some recommendations on how the city should try to deal with this issue in our community. And I also think that there is a housing commission that's going to be starting. So, that's kind of like an early plug for people you may know who are interested in participating in a commission like that. And there was an item on action of a affordable housing project at 3941 Stevens Creek Boulevard. That project utilized an exemption called the Sustainable Communities Exemption. It was also a project that benefited from a lot of state laws around housing, such as AB 3194, SB 330, as well as state housing density bonus law. So that's actually kind of an interesting project to just hear about because it's implementing exactly what the state wanted to do, which was like to facilitate and streamline, in this case, a 100% affordable housing project. So that project got unanimously approved by the city council. And I believe that is it on the council agenda for last night.
Thank you, Rena. Then this brings us to the point in time where I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn in honor and memory of John Arriaga Sr., who was a real estate developer and a philanthropist who was hugely important to Silicon Valley. I think Commissioner Cherukuri mentioned, but in the 60s, Arriaga and his business partner, Richard Perry, bought California farmland and converted it into office space. And we're talking about 2 commercial landlords that had more than 12 million square feet. So he was definitely somebody who was a major influencer on how the Valley changed from Valley of the Heart's Delight that I remember to Silicon Valley today. He also, his philanthropy is really noted for his support of Stanford University. I know that in June of 2013, he donated $151 million to Stanford, which was the largest individual donation from a living donor in the university's history. So in his honor, may I have a motion to adjourn until our next meeting on Wednesday, February 16th?
Second.
If there's no objections, we stand adjourned. You have an opportunity here to say if you have an objection.
No, no objections.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for tonight.
Thanks to
Thank
Xander
you,
for last
thank
night as well.
And
That
thank you
was-
too,
Good night.
Xander.
That was an amazing
Thank you.
reprise.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Good night,
Appreciate it.
everyone.
Thanks.